Welcome to Fit Club Vegas, the ultimate fitness destination for visitors. Drop in for a day pass and experience our 10,000 square foot fitness playground. At Fit Club, you'll find state-of-the-art equipment and a sound system so good you'll pitch your headphones. Conveniently located 7 to 12 minutes from the Las Vegas Strip, Fit Club is a perfect spot for you to come get your pump while visiting Sin City. So come check us out at 4525 West Hacienda, Las Vegas, Nevada. Fit Club Vegas, more than a gym, it's a vibe.
Pacific West Injury Law. Injured? Call 602-HURT. Car accident? Call 602-HURT. Our firm is dedicated to you and your recovery.
But you're the most viral. Oh, we're live. Okay.
Go.
All right. So we have Coach Greg. I want to call you many different things. IFBB Pro. We're just talking about one of the most viral YouTube personalities. Welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I made it one day.
Vegas, and it was kind of funny because you hit me up, and I was like, "You're like, I'm in Vegas." I had no idea you were even here.
It's early Sunday morning. No partying last night, so I'm good to go. The brain is fresh.
I was wondering what. If you were going to show up this morning, if you were out. Vegas is tough, man. You stay here for more than 2 days. It can be a tough
I met
place.
one day at noon, and I was out, and I literally got home at 9 a.m. And really? I made it. No one could tell.
How are you still running like that, man?
I don't know how I do it. I think the cardio is keeping me fit.
Okay. Well, you were a cyclist for a while. I mean, I know your cardio is...
Well, 13 years of triathlons. I started when I was 13. I stopped at 26. And then I got out of it because I'm like, I want to be a pro bodybuilder, cut out all the cardio, try to get as huge as I could. And then was like, wait a minute. I should probably go back to doing some cardio if I want to live to be, an 80, 90-year-old guy. And so that's why I do some
What's
cardio.
harder, though? Is it cycling harder or bodybuilding harder?
Bodybuilding is harder than any sport I've ever done. And I've done a lot of sports. Yep. It's by far the hardest. I've made videos on this. I'm comparing it to powerlifting, bodybuilding. I'm like, I've done all the sports. It's so hard because what other sport do you have to do it like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? You're hungry, tired. It's so difficult.
You really believe that the whole thing is the eating patterns, the sleeping patterns, and the training, right? I mean, it's
combining everything. Like cycling is hard. Like, okay, you're going for a 5-hour bike ride, but you're allowed to eat as much as you want. Try doing 2 hours of cardio and not allowed to eat or have such a low-calorie diet that you have no energy the whole time. My biggest struggle with bodybuilding was the lack of energy. It wasn't really the hunger. It was having a hard time waking up in the morning, having a hard time getting out of the bathtub to stand up, like just being that tired. I was dead. Once I get down to, say, 7% body fat, my energy levels are nothing. I can hardly function as a human being. And I always would want to compete like 5% body fat or less, just to get shredded. And so those last 6 weeks, to me, the hardest things I've ever done in my life.
So you're still get up in the morning, do fasted cardio?
I've never been a fasted cardio kind of guy. And when I was dieting back in the day, like 20 years ago, I tried it. I would get up and do like an hour and a half cardio in the morning and then eat because I didn't really know the science. Now I know it's just calories in, calories out. So it doesn't matter. The only time I do fasted cardio is like on vacation. If I ate too much the night before, I'm not hungry and I want to get the cardio done at like 6 a.m. before my friends get up and then just go about my day. But I'll do cardio hungover. I just do it.
Because if you remember, I ran into you in the gym in Anaheim. You were training over. I don't know if you were doing cardio that morning.
Yeah, cardio on the bike.
You were I think you said you were fasting or doing something.
I probably, if I ate too much the night before, I'm just like, okay. I don't need to eat. If I wake up, I'm not hungry, I'll get the cardio done. Like I usually try to get an hour done.
Yeah, it's we always talk about that that's kind of my routine. I do it as more of a mental thing when I wake up in the morning. But I've been doing now this, which I was always against this. And, you have a lot of training theories. I know you have a lot of background, but I've been doing fasted, actually weight training workouts in the morning, and it's phenomenal.
Now, what makes you enjoy it more? Like, there's no real science to say that it's going to be beneficial to build more muscle or something like that.
It totally goes against what I ever thought, because I'm always like, hey, you gotta eat food, get the glycogen. You have to have. I always thought after 4 meals, I thought my pumps were so much better. And if I was trying to put on size, I would say that eating 3 or 4 meals and then training was very efficient. Training under Hani, that's how he had me do Chris Aceto. I worked with both guys through my career, but I think the most important thing for me is I always look at the pump. That's all I care about when I train. And I eat enough during the day prior, and if I wake up in the morning, say if I eat, I sleep for 5 to 8 hours, I feel like I can still wake up and I still have the energy. I have the muscle glycogen to actually train. My pumps have never been actually better. So it's working well for me, but I'm also trying to keep weight off, if that makes sense, because I still eat pretty decent amount of food, but I still enjoy the training. So it's like, it's the first thing, it's euphoric for me to wake up and actually train and feel like, I feel so much more accomplished, because, the days get busy. I mean, I still enjoy the training more because now, even at my age, at 51, I can still train full capacity, if that makes sense.
I think a lot of people worry about being perfect. Like there's all the like science this, science that, now the push to be the perfect workout. I think the perfect workout involves actually training.
Yeah.
Should we just...
No. This is what happens.
It happens normally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the perfect training program is the one that you really enjoy. And so if you like working out in the morning, I think that you should work out in the morning. I think it's more important to like what you're doing than to actually have the perfect plan, because the perfect plan is the one that you will actually do and be consistent with.
I mean, do you usually get up, when you usually eat when you wake up in the morning?
Within 15 to 30 minutes is
Okay.
usually my thing, but I try not to eat too much at night. But I mean, I got a chef at the house and prepares my meals first thing in the morning. I'm spoiled. And I get all my mental work out of the way, like all my videos, recording. I'm the sharpest in the morning. So I'll eat my healthy breakfast with my fruit and my, my healthy eggs, whatever it is. And then I'll go and record my videos. And then I'll do my lifting and my bike riding as kind of a stress relief from the thinking in the morning. So I'll do a really hard bike race, or I'll go and lift at the gym. And I really like mid-afternoon as being an ideal.
So you bike actually like on a virtual or?
Yeah, Zwift is a platform where you race against other people around the world. There's like
Okay.
115,000 of us registered, and there's different categories based on your ability, almost like the pro and then like the top level, and then it keeps going down like that. And so I can pick any race every probably 10 or 15 minutes and go against other people.
And how do you do in these things?
I win sometimes. Like I'm in a second hardest category, so I'm not like the elite. Like I'm not competing against Armstrong. The pros are at another level. I'm the second level down. So it'd be like a national level type of bike rider. It's fun.
And what's the setup like that cost to have that all?
For about $3,000 US, you're good to go. That's all you need. And I mean, I have a laptop in front or like an iPad, and it keeps track of like the watts, the heart rate.
And how much time is this usually of the day?
I would say my average ride is an hour, and maybe I warm up for 5 or 10 minutes and then race for like 40, 50 minutes. They're shorter, harder rides, which is good for me because I'm not really built for endurance. So shorter's better.
Yeah, we always talked about the kind of intensity, right?
I love the intensity. I needed something to replace like training for powerlifting and bodybuilding and going to the gym and trying to set like a bench PR, or a deadlift PR, all these events that challenge me. I needed to challenge myself in a different way. And now it's like with watts, power, racing. And it's not that I'm not as good at it, but I don't really care. I compare myself to myself. So if I know that I could do 500 watts for 2 minutes and now I can do 500 watts for 2 minutes and 2 seconds, I just improved.
And does this help with your network? I mean, is this really like built another network with the people you're going against? Because it's a different sector than like we're fitness, right? I mean, we talk about, which is considered fitness, but I mean, people might look at you as a bodybuilding. I mean, you coach bodybuilders, you have supplements, you do all these viral videos that are related to bodybuilding, but are you doing stuff on cycling and other things? I mean, do you know who the cyclists are? I mean, do you follow that side of it? Or?
Well, I've followed the Tour de France since I was 14, 15. I love the sport. I do have a harder than last time bike racing team, the virtual riders. They're all guys that work out, that watch my videos. So we all race as a team. Guys are just crazy fast. It's funny because they'll talk about, how do I get more sugar in a day? Like these guys are burning off 1,200 calories per hour. And they'll be like, yeah, I just raced 3 hours. So you burn 3,600 calories. How do you eat enough? Because these guys are putting in 5,000 to 6,000 calories a day, and they're skinny little guys.
That's what I put.
pounds.
Yeah, that's what I was eating, but it was of course lean food.
It's like top bodybuilders who are drinking sugar like during the race. They're showing me pictures. They're like, how can I get in more sugar? So the chats are so different than my book. Like I have a cookbook, how to lose weight. These guys are like, how do I eat more calories? Like, because if they don't,
But
put in the
they
calories,
must drink
they're
a lot of calories.
a lot of sugar. Drink, like they'll have. One guy had 550 grams of sugar mixed with water in his drink. They're like, what's better, like cyclodextrin or like dextrose or just plain
What do you
sugar?
think?
I think it doesn't matter. I don't think it matters that much. Whichever you can get down.
He's like a Sam Sulek, macros in,
Oh my God, the calories in, calories out. I kind of believe that. I do think it's important to have like nutrient dense foods like fruits and vegetables. Like I preach a high fruit and vegetable diet, but I'm one that's like, I'm into the aspartame and all that stuff. I don't think it's bad, but
Aceto's the same way, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean,
he's always like
calorie
out.
He didn't like fats, so he's like, hey, just take in carbs and protein, stay away from that's how he always was. So he used to write me a diet and say, each meal, like just have 50 protein and then like 75 carbs, but didn't care what it came from.
Right.
So whether it was bagels, whether it was pasta, whether it was rice, whether it was whatever, right? So he wasn't really picky about that as long as it didn't contain a lot of fat. Because like people do these cheat meals, right? I mean, I don't know with cycling or, what do you think about like a high fat? Do you into high fat diets? Keto? Matt's on a keto diet.
I personally don't like high fat because it's not satiating for me. It's not filling. But what works is the diet that works. So like it's a Gregism. Like the best diet is the best diet. Like it makes sense. But if I eat more fats, I'm more hungry and I can't handle it. And as a coach for years, thousands of bodybuilders, the number one reasons diets fail is because they couldn't stick to their diet. And all these athletes are cheating on their diets. Their coaches, no one tells their coaches anything. And I'm like, I just give them the diet where I know they can follow it.
What if I was to look in your cookbook? What kind of plans is your cooking procedures? Is it like
fast and easy for like a teenager? Because like I'm not some crazy chef, but I spent 20 years trying to figure out a way to diet that would leave me satiated. Because when I was younger, like first food diets, it was like vegetables, chicken, broccoli, and rice. I couldn't do it. I was like, there's got to be a better way. And then I started eating like popcorn and lower calorie peanut butter, making lower calorie versions of everything. And it was working. And then the first big name I coached was Ian Valere, who was eating from my basically it wasn't a cookbook back then. It was just my recipes. And he was getting shredded. And I was like, well, there's the proof in the pudding.
Well, don't you think he's an anomaly though? Because I feel like he trains so hard, right?
Yeah.
I think that there's certain people I feel like can get conditioned better than others just because of their training styles. Like Eric Lunsford, Matt Grego, like these guys train like animals. Branch Warren trained like an animal. So I think that they didn't have to sit on the step mill or treadmills for hours a day. And maybe they did do some cardio, but they trained so damn hard. Ronnie Coleman, the same thing.
Yeah, it definitely comes down to genetics. And I think that most people have shitty genetics compared to an Ian Valere or any of these guys we're naming. And I think for these people, it matters even more because what's going to keep them shredded is not eating many calories or doing a lot of cardio for long enough for it to get them to that shredded level. Most people, I would say 95%, if they said, hey, what do I need to do to improve my stage? I don't even need to look. You need to get better at leaner.
Do you enjoy coaching people for contests, or do you like the lifestyle coaching?
I, back in the day, loved the competition because I could live vicariously through them, and then seeing them on stage winning a competition and knowing the work that they put into it. I mean, there's a lot of joy in that. At this stage in my life, I don't really have the time to do that with all these athletes. So more so the average person who's, for example, 100 pounds overweight or 50 pounds overweight that doesn't like anything, it's so easy to make them, like, let's call it fit, to go from being like obese to fit. It's so easy. And
you do it through the cookbook, or do you actually have plans that you do that?
I coach people like legit coaching plans where I've had to adjust their diets and the training programs and so on. I've got one-time plans. I just started a new coaching program where I'm taking on more athletes to do that. I'm not looking for contest prep athletes because honestly, that's just too much work because it's like every other day, like here's the check-in, the picture, and there's the mental. You have to get on the phone and convince them they're not fat and it's body dysmorphia. So I like to stick more to lifestyle stuff now, but back in the past, I loved coaching competitors.
You still coach anyone that competes?
I would coach like famous guys because it's basically fun to just coach. Like I coached the Tren Twins for a while, or like if say a guy like Jesse James or Will Tennyson, these kind of top level guys, then it's fun. But then you're doing video collabs at the same time. So it's kind of a fun process to see what they're doing and people know about it. So there's a lot of benefits to doing that.
The Tren Twins are probably the most popular
at the
expo people right now.
I would say it makes sense because the most popular are going to be ones that appeal to teenagers. The ones that come up to me the most, I think, are teenagers. And so if you appeal to a teenage audience, you're going to look more viral. When I meet people, like they're like 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds, like older people that watch my content, they're less likely to come up and talk to me or interrupt me during a dinner or something to take a photo. So you end up with almost a skewed percentage of people who are like the younger audience that come and talk to you. But I know that based on my like what is it called, logistics or whatever, like looking at my,
and
I have a lot of people 35 plus, like a lot, and they come talk to me all the time, but just not, they're not as like sign my shirt, sign my belt, that kind of stuff. So you get kind of a warped perception of who's the most popular, because it's the younger people that at the expos make the biggest difference.
Are you surprised though that age demographic has gone into those teenage years now with the influence you have?
The most people that spend the most time on social media are teenagers. And so if you're a 50-year-old and you have a lot of 50-year-old fans, you're not going to get as many people looking at you or following on social media. But it doesn't mean you're not as popular. It's just that the younger audience are the ones that go on Instagram. And so if you're an Instagram person and you're 20, you're going to look like you're more viral than somebody older. So for example, Sam Sulek's probably the #1 fitness influencer right now. He's like 23 years old. He has so many followers. If Sam Sulek were 53 and had just as many fans, he'd only have maybe 500,000 followers on Instagram, because like my mom and dad don't follow Instagram. They're not going to look at that.
Hey guys, Jay Cutler here. If you have not heard already, I launched my own TRT clinic. TRT Kingdom is now live. If you guys want to schedule your consultation, please click the link below and you'll get all the information you guys need for better health.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time, like with Schwarzenegger, because like C-Bum's ready to pass Schwarzenegger on Instagram, right? So, but is C-Bum more popular around the world than Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Not even remotely close, despite the fact that on paper it might look that way. It's not true. Like my mom and dad are not going to follow Arnold, but they know who he is. But
there isn't a corner in this globe that Arnold can't go and not be recognized.
Oh yeah,
I don't care where
level. I mean, yeah, C-Bum is famous, but Arnold is like at a whole different level of fame.
Iconic.
Yes.
Yeah. He might be top 5 most famous people in the world.
Yeah, exactly. He's at that highest top level.
So if you had to, because listen, I've watched your stuff over the years, right? And you had this persona that you displayed, right? You had this voice and this whole persona when you did these videos. Has your content, because when you look at these analytics and you look at the demographics, like coming out of the gate, I mean, #1, did you expect to get so viral on YouTube? And has your message changed? Like if there was a message you put out, because we talk about, like, they call you Coach Greg, and, you obviously own supplements, and you do, we talk about cycling. There's a lot more to what you do. So has your content had to change over the years to kind of drive that different audience into your following a little bit?
I think it's changed tremendously, and I think that if you're stuck in the same thing, even if it works, it's only going to work for so long. The same Coach Greg from 5 years ago wouldn't be famous now. My original videos, I said predominantly where they were educating people on performance-enhancing drugs. If I really look back and think, what were people watching? They were watching Natty or Nots, and what were they taking, and what does this SARM do, and this PD do? What could it do? What's the goods, the bads, the pros, the cons, the ugly? I think now, because I'm older and I'm not on these PDs anymore, other than HRT, for example, I think that my message is to try not to do it, because I have a lot of regrets from using and abusing steroids for over 10 years. And so my message is that you don't need to do this, and that you should try not to do this, and that when you get older, you might regret it. So even a guy like Chris Bumstead or Sam Sulek, I'm thinking 20 years from now, will they look back and have regrets? Despite having won the Olympias and, the biggest titles, is it actually worth it? Because you're chasing that dopamine, that thrill of winning. And then you look back and you're like, was it actually worth it? It's hard to get out.
But the kid, Sam Sulek's 23.
Yeah.
I mean, he's in the early, I turned pro at 23, same thing. And I mean, he did 2 contests and turned
two
professional.
contests, turned pro.
And the expectations, a lot of pressure on that kid. And I don't think he necessarily used a coach, maybe bounce some stuff, or...
I think he did it all on his own, bounced off his few ideas. I know he was talking to Urs Kalasensky, like, am I lean enough? He's like, no, bro, get more lean than this. And he messaged with you. Yeah. You said, your condition's decent. And I think it lit a fire.
Did you agree?
I 100% was on your side. I made a video talking about it. I'm like, yeah, he needs to diet harder. He's not nowhere near.
You know why I said it? Because it was just like Sam, we obviously know each other, but he's not a guy that reaches out to really, he just happened to be here.
Yeah.
So he's like, hey, he came out and did the podcast, and then we worked out together, but he told me what he was eating, and it was like not a diet for a contest 10 weeks
ideal.
out.
No.
So it's like there was no real consistency. Like he came out here, and it's like when you travel for a show, you're 10 weeks out, you're mostly bringing meal prep, or at least you're having the food prepared when you get there. He didn't have any of that. So that's why I was kind of like, okay, you look decent, but you're going to have to get in some systematic program where you have, okay, I know every day what I'm, like he's doing his cardio every day for 30 minutes or an hour. He needs to make sure that the diet is the same way.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case at that moment. So that's why I said he looked decent. A lot of people took a lot of like criticism towards that. Like I was almost being disrespectful, but
I think you're being honest.
And I think, and I mentioned it to him when we saw him at the Arnold, because we just did the whole meet and greet stuff. And I said, hopefully it gave you a little fire. And he was kind of just like, I think he knew, like, he listened. He
for sure absorbed it, listened, and took what he needed to from what Jay said.
Yeah,
I didn't think you were disrespectful. I mean, he just barely started his diet.
Everyone wants, when you get praise from me, they want to hear like, oh man, look,
you're killing it.
Yeah. And unfortunately, like, listen, I'm trying to push the kid to be the best of the best. I mean, I want him to win the Arnold Classic, which I wasn't sure if he would go into. Never who's going to show up. It's an international event.
It's a big show.
You know how hard it is, like, to be the guy. I mean, when you're built up that much on social media, I didn't know, but he went. I mean, he sat in the front row. He said it was 100% deserved.
I kind of got annoyed when I would see all the people saying he only won because of his following. Like, were you at the show? It wasn't like there was this ridiculously deep lineup. Sam looked the best of the group that was up there.
Yeah.
Therefore, he won. If there was 10 other people, he might not have won. But too many people just assumed, oh, you only won because they're going to make money off.
And you were a judge. I mean, you can talk a little bit about that. So I'm not a qualified judge. I sit on this podcast all the time. We break down these shows. And I said, okay, this is my opinion. And you can be harsh on people sometimes, right? So, and I know that's kind of been a little bit of your background is like maybe what you said, because of course you're going away from the show and getting on media and talking about maybe your beliefs. And that's, how has that affected you as a judge?
I'm not even allowed to judge anymore because, I've made some
And this is in
comments.
Canada, right?
This is in the IFBB, part of the CBF, or CBBF, Canadian Bodybuilding Federation. They got rid of me as a judge a year before I made comments about female bodybuilding being overtly sexual, that they're wearing the ponytails, they're covering their backs. I said they should be forced to move the hair off their back so that we can judge the physique. I said they're walking to the curtain in the rear. They're wiggling their butts back and forth in steel stilettos, and it's very, very sexual. And I'm like, don't these women want to be athletes? And so I said as well, the muscle maturity, the density has gotten really high in the last several years. And so what did they do? They've now added in a new division for fit model. I've said the same comments about women's wellness, that had gone too far, men's physique and the board shorts, they'd gone too far, and they'd already banned me from judging a year before this. So they use it as a scapegoat to just make me look like, Greg's a bad guy because he said women are very much overtly sexual, of which they are. I won't name their names, but a lot of big names, former Olympia champions, that approached me and said, I agree with every single thing that you said. But of course, they're not going to say it out because people are scared. You don't want to be outcast from the IFBB, but I just tell people what I think.
Is it something that you miss doing?
I like judging. I like to give back to the sport, and I feel like I do so on my channel. And if you really looked at my channel, like I just did a video on women and Anavar and like the dangers and what coaches are trying to get them to do. And I'm like, there's time after bodybuilding. Like if you're a women's bikini competitor, you might have 5 good years and you're probably not going to compete after. But if your voice has changed, if you've now facial hair, you're shaving, you're going bald, these are things you need to think about.
What can women use safely, in your opinion?
Safely, nothing.
Safely is an opinion.
Yeah, safely, nothing.
Nothing.
I mean, the thing is,
Nothing.
safer is the word I use. Like, for example, Anavar in lower doses, it's much safer than higher doses. It's safer than testosterone. But women...
Well, that's like anything, though.
Exactly.
But a woman can take it, and they can, even on a low dose, can still have life-changing effects.
Exactly, especially if it's not real, which is probably 50% of the Anavar that people are getting. Is probably
50 is
not
being
real.
generous. It's probably much higher
So
than
that's the problem. People don't know what they're doing. Coaches just want to see the before and after. There's no voice analysis in the before and after. So they show, this is my client here, and this is my client there. Wow, I want that. Give me some money. And the coaches are pushing the drugs on the clients, and I know so because I coach them in secret. They tell me their cycles, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that's what you're taking. You need to stop right now. And these coaches keep getting away with it, and then after a few years, they get rid of that athlete. They don't talk about the problems, and that athlete's not going to come out and say, look at my voice, it's horrible.
How much has it changed since you got into it? I mean, you started as a natural bodybuilder. For how long did you?
I competed in 42 shows
Did you
natural.
turn professional?
There was no back. I would win the Canadian National Overall Drug Tested Championships. I won so many different shows. There was no pro for doing
qualifier.
that. Now you turn pro for that. So if it would have been in today's day and age, I would have turned pro while being natural, but I would have competed in men's classic physique. So what I
You were a bodybuilder.
I competed in bodybuilding because there was no
division-
men's physique and
What
there was
weight
no.
division?
I won from 142 pounds up to heavyweight, but not as natural. When I went on steroids, I went up from middleweight to light heavy and heavy. So that was the difference. I was probably 25 pounds of muscle bigger with steroids.
Did you have a
versus
coach?
without. I coached.
No, did you have a coach?
Oh, did I ever have a coach?
Or
I don't.
mean,
I had a
I'm
coach
not-
for
I always ask
powerlifting
this.
for 10 weeks once, but no, I never had a coach.
How did you learn?
I learned from watching other people and experimentation with myself and trying what works and what doesn't. And what worked for me was being able to get really lean, and that was having the proper diet. But man, I experimented with so many different techniques and training methods, like the 5-day split, 4-day split, 3-day split, training 2-a-days. Back then, there was no.
He's talking about the training more than I'm. You know what I mean? Not than what I took, what I take. Because I feel like every time
Nowadays,
now,
everyone's drugs.
what do you take? Like they want
Back
the
in the
secret-
day, it was like I was against steroids. I never thought I would use steroids until I got much older. Like I didn't even like if somebody was said, "What is Anavar?" in my mid-20s, late 20s, I would have been like, "What do you mean?" Like I don't know.
What was your
always
background
natural.
at that point?
I had a master's in kinesiology, was my top level. I was a kinesiologist as a phys ed teacher.
Okay, so
but I trained 100% natural. I didn't know about steroids. But then before I ever did them, I started asking my friends, like, what do you take? And they'd be like, oh, I'm taking like D-ball for the show, like a week out, and I'd load on Adderall, and I would go on the internet, and I would start researching. And by the time I took a steroid, I knew more than 99.9% of people about them, because I'm like, if I'm going to take that, I want to know what I'm doing.
But in Canada, it's a little different, right?
It's legal there.
That's weird. Yeah.
So it's so when I'm like being open, and I'm like, yeah, but
Personal use.
police
is legal,
officers
correct?
are using steroids. Yeah, you can talk about it openly with them. Like I could go up to a police officer and say, hey, I'm taking test and Tren. And they would be like, oh yeah, me too. How much D-ball are you doing? So it's not like the United States where it's like, okay, it's illegal. But what's weird in Canada is it's so hard to get HRT. In comparison here, anyone can get it.
So when you were competing naturally, was it an ethical thing? And then at what point, what happened that made you say, okay, I'm not going in this and now I'm going to cross over?
Well, bodybuilding to me, the part that was really fun was just the self-improvement. So as long as I was getting better, I was like, why would I want to use anything? Plus I was winning. How fun is it to go in a contest, natural, and win the overall? Like a provincial level
I know
championship.
why was it genetics?
It's
Greg,
absolutely
or is it,
genetics.
Did you feel you had some different training technique?
No, I just
or
honestly-
the ability to get super lean.
I wasn't even super. I was back in the day. I was probably 7% body fat when I was like natural, but the structure and the smaller waist, the way my abs looked was such a strength, which actually got way worse once I used steroids. Just the body looked really good. Like at 150 pounds, I looked like I was 180. And it was just like the hamstrings, the X frame. I just had a great look. I was being promoted in magazines and whatnot, even as a natural. And I just knew that I had something. And if I took steroids, I would eventually be at the top. But as long as I was making gains, I saw no reason to take steroids. I was like, why? I'm winning. Like if you're winning and you're natural, why would you take a steroid?
I agree.
So once I was like, okay, now I'm not making any gains. I want a pro card. I knew I had to take something at that point. And that's what I did. And it worked 100%.
I know, but like you, one of these guys that says Natty IFBB Pro or whatever.
No, I was on gear when I won my pro card, 100%. I was 190 plus pounds shredded. I actually got the second pro card against Antoine Vaillant. He won super heavy. I was in light heavy.
In the Canadian Nationals.
Yeah, there was 5 Olympians, I think, in that lineup, like guys that competed in the future. I forget all their names, of course. I'm horrible with
Who's
names.
who's the best Canadian bodybuilder ever?
Bodybuilder?
Steve Bum's obviously
other than
classic,
Steve Bum.
but like
Ever.
Henderson Thorne or Steve Brisboe, do you follow it that close or?
I know a lot of the names, but I'm trying to think who would beat Ian Valère.
Oh, it's true.
He's got 8th at the Olympia. Who would have been ahead of that? I don't know how high any of these guys would have placed. So I'm not really an expert.
He did pretty well.
Ben was good.
Yeah.
He got.
I just saw
fast.
him this last weekend. He was.
Yeah, I remember him as an amateur and then turning pro, and how much muscle these guys were putting on. They look crazy. He didn't compete very long.
So you do this natty or not thing, and that comes from deep experience.
Oh, yeah,
you
absolutely.
can kind of like how can you tell if someone is natty or not?
So here's
truly?
the funny thing. It's easy when you look jacked and you look huge and you're like, okay, this guy is just obvious, like me as a pro. It's like, there's no question. But the hard thing is when somebody doesn't look amazing, like they look average. I'll do a natty or not on Danny, what was that guy's name? Danny, the natty or not on that guy. David Dobrik. Do you know this guy?
Yeah, social media guy. Yeah.
16 million followers. I did a natty or not. I said, not natty. And you're like, yeah, but anyone can achieve that look natural. I'm like, yeah, but not him. He didn't do it. What I look for, it's not the after. It's not the how do you look. It's the how fast did you get it, and did it suddenly blip up all of a sudden?
I feel that came about before like HRT and everything because everyone's HRT is different. I mean, I talk to guys that like, I'm on TRT, whatever.
500 milligrams.
Yeah, and it's like
this is one of the things that annoys me the most.
Okay, so talk a little bit about that because
HRT is a huge piss off. It's the new fake natty.
So you can't say there's no. Is there such a thing as natural? Like, there's a time now. It's like if you haven't taken juice in X amount of years, are you still natural?
Once you've done steroids, you're no longer natty.
What about SARMs?
SARMs, you've no longer natty. Anything banned by WADA, World Anti-Doping Agency, not natty. So like on the fence, I would say stuff like Cialis, but Cialis is not on the list. So I'd say, okay, your Cialis, you're still natural. If you're taking any kind of SARM or any kind of
insulin,
insulin, I would say not natural, even though you can take it with a doctor's prescription. So if you're type 2 diabetic and you need insulin, then that's fine. Yeah, I'm really strict on natty or not. If you're on HRT, doctor prescribed, you're not natty at all. So am I natty now? No, I'm on 140
Who's gotten
milligrams.
the most angry that you've called out for natty or not?
The most angry, probably.
You're trying to stir shit up, sir.
Probably, what's that guy's name that had the heart attack? Black guy.
Cali Muscle?
Yes. Cali Muscle was so mad. And I'm like, bro, but you're not natty. Like, literally. And then we were fighting back and forth. He started name-calling my girlfriend at the time, calling her a she or it was a he. It went bad.
Is Michael Hearn natural?
Oh, my God. I would bet $1 million against $1. The better question is, how much is this guy on? He's not just on HRT. This guy is on everything at this point. He's not just a little bit on natty. He's on the most.
Who I just asked about Michael Hearns? I asked somebody.
That's like asking
Ed Connors.
Ed Connors, yeah.
That's like asking if the Liver King is natty. Is the Liver King natty? Ended up he was on a $13,000 a month cycle.
The Liver King, or
I've talked to him in the DMs a lot,
yeah.
but I'm like, bro, you're not like like. What do you mean? Like, it's Greg you're talking.
It's so funny because we had touched base and we were supposed to like work out together like the day before all that
came down.
Yes.
What I can't believe is that Derek and that Vigorous Steve outed him. Like, do you know how many guys I know are fake natties that I don't announce because they told me in confidence? I'm like, you can't break confidence. Like, if somebody writes me right now.
So I asked you a question that I asked him. Who's not? I would never call people out. I have to ask Mike because we know Mike on a personal level. And
We bust his balls all the time.
I mean, in our world, he's the most questionable.
By questionable, you mean like he's not?
No,
natty.
like
I'll say why.
No, there's okay. Go ahead.
The reason that he's questionable is he's been the same size for 40 years.
I could take
same
HRT
strength.
and be the same size for 40 years.
But if you take it for 40 years, at some point you're going to get some type of effect, and he doesn't have it. But he is 56 and
He
looks like that,
right, Greg? I mean,
it's funny to me when people go,
This is what I would do.
Shit.
I would take HRT at 100 milligrams a week, starting at 25, and then every year I would add up 10 milligrams. And by the time I'm 55, I'm now at 400 milligrams, and I would maintain the same amount of size. And I would say, is he the same size? No, because he diets down to like do these movie roles, and he looks even more crazy. And I've done videos. I'm an expert on Michael Hearn. He's gained 25 pounds of muscle in 1 year. I'm like, you gained 25 pounds of muscle this year, Mike. Okay, really? How? Well, if you did, you must have lost 25 because I don't see you 25 pounds bigger than last year. So he's going in these phases, and he'll just cover up a little bit more. And he doesn't say his actual body weight, and he doesn't show his blood
He's
work
very
ever.
tricky on social media because he has a lot of pictures that always, he seems to always be in shape, and he's always strong. He can bench press a lot. I mean, he squats. Obviously, he's got that crazy background. I mean, since we said
He was a powerlifting phenom as a teenager.
Yeah.
He was very strong. He still got it.
what about some of the girls?
Are there fake natties? Probably the most famous would be Daylin Bailey. You probably know she's the first ever women's physique Olympia.
She's natural, though.
She would be
isn't she?
claiming 100% natural. And if you listen to her voice now, you're natty, right? Okay. She was at a fitness seminar maybe 10 years ago, and she spoke, and they're like, I'm not done anything. I haven't done Nova. I haven't done anything. And I was a speaker too. And I'm like, there's no way this girl's natural. I'm not going to stay on the stage.
See, I still think that there's certain people that are natty, and like, I think Simeon Panda's natty.
Yeah, no. Immediately, no.
You know what? I'll say this about Dana.
The proof is in the blood work. These guys won't post. If Michael Hearn posted his blood work, I've challenged him. I will do a video on it. He's not going to post his blood work because he can't even get a one time in the year natural. Like if I wanted to,
he's with a TRT clinic. I believe
he was with Transcend, but I don't know what he's with now. He was with a
Titan.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're with a TRT clinic, I'm with a TRT clinic. I was working with Transcend, and I posted my blood work, and my test levels were 550, and the next time they were 765, and I varied like the time, like it was 3 days after the day of. Post the blood work and prove
Why do
it.
you think people get so uptight about natty or nots?
This is why people are looking for an excuse why they suck. This is why
I always say that.
It's straight up.
You're just you're blunt about it. So
No, I always say, look, you'll hear people arguing about the old school guys, and they're saying, there's no way they only took that. And I'm like, the reality is they're just fucking better than you.
Yeah.
They're better than you. That's
want
why
an
they don't
excuse.
need this.
Yeah.
It's
Like
just-
I believe Lee Priest only took X amount of milligrams of this. He just is great, and he's a hyper responder.
is there such? That's what I was going to ask you. There's hyper responders.
Absolutely. There's genetics for everything. There's genetics for low doses of gear. Like if I just take HRT, I'm a hyper responder to low doses. If I up my dose from 140 to 170, which I did, I'm like getting moon face. I'm getting bigger. I'm getting jacked. Every 20 milligrams, I can feel. When I was taking 10 milligrams of Anavar, it was amazing. It's my favorite steroid ever. That's the one steroid I want to do right now that I still want to do. And it's been 5 years, and it's like I still have feelings of it. That's why I warn people, if you start using steroids, it's very hard to stop. Yep. I'm a hyper responder to low doses. Then the crazy doses, because remember, I wanted to make the Olympia. I wanted to be 212 Olympia champion. I was like, well, all I have to do is double my doses. And if I put on 10 pounds here, I'll gain 10 more here. I double the dose, triple the dose, quadruple the dose, and I'm like gaining 2 more pounds. So very small cycles, I gain a lot. Massive cycles, hardly any difference. I'm like, what's happening? Why can't I grow more I was at 700 milligrams of Tren at one point. And I'm taking 700 Tren, 700 test, 700 Masteron, 700 EQ. And I'm like, I can't even function a week later. I'm like, man, I'm going to
That's really bad.
It's horrible. I don't think what I did was smart.
Why did you do that?
I wanted to be the Olympia champion. I wanted more muscle, and I couldn't do it.
I told you I didn't take close to that,
I believe it 100%.
We've done our interview, but
I know it.
Which we can go back on your YouTube.
Because if I did half those doses, I probably would have made better gains.
So when you came off our Skype that we did for your YouTube channel, and I kind of tried to remember what I took. Did you believe that, like, I couldn't really remember everything?
Everything you said, I believe. And I'm thinking, why would you lie about it? It doesn't make sense at this point. Like, people think, like, well, why would he lie at this point? Like, he's going to say it's this much
anything.
or that much.
I mean, that's the thing with me. It's like out as much as I can remember, but people, like, shame on me because I can't give them the exact what I took for the 07 Olympia versus the 2010.
I'm a number phenom with I'm addicted to numbers. I remember like a lot, watts, heart rate, all this stuff. I can't remember all my cycles. So I'm like, how would any normal person do that? Most people don't remember what they ate for breakfast. Like literally, it's hard.
I really think that the reason the old school guys did not need to take a lot, one, it was all from the pharmacy. And two,
so real
they
health.
concentrated on the training, the food, and the sleep, and drugs was the fourth thing. Where now guys are, I'm going to take all these drugs. I'm not going to train as hard. I'm not going to sleep. And I'm going to take all kinds of other things that go in my body that can affect your growth. And it's just a totally different
The mindset
situation.
now is I'm going to see how easy I can train and still make the amount of gains I need. People don't want to train hard. They want to like do the 10-pound dumbbell curls, laying back like this, and just see if I'm going to grow as much as curl in the 60s. And it's like people just want it easy, and they also want it younger. People want to be pro by 19 now. It's like, guys, wait, take your time, build your muscle. And the sad thing, and I want people to remember this, is just because you double the doses doesn't mean you double the gains. You double the dose, you might get 10% more gains, and you double it again, you might actually get less gains.
There's another a top Olympian. I remember when he took his dose to a really high number, and it went higher than he ever had, and he actually lost results.
Yeah.
And then he dropped it back down to half of what it was, and he started growing again.
Yeah. Trend like the Trensomnia, not being able to recover, sleeping 3 hours a night. How are you growing? I upped the dose to 700. I had anxiety all of the time. I felt like crap. I'm sweating through the sheets of the bed. I'm like, how am I building muscle like this? If you can't recover, you can't grow. So you just take that out and all of a sudden you're growing more.
What do you think about the twice a day training? Because I feel like I did that back in my era. Everyone did that. Wheeler, Cormier, all the guys were doing twice a day training, and it worked really well for me. Why do you think we've gotten away from not doing as much? Like this I don't know anyone that trains twice a day anymore.
There's still some that do the twice a day training, not that many, but I think that it is beneficial if you're not getting in the volume, if it's something that helps you get it in. Although I think that if you train once a day, you can get just as many gains as twice a day, depending on how is your style. Remember earlier we said like you need to like your training. If I go in once a day and I get the workout in that I need, then that's just as good as going in twice. But if you get lazy after an hour, maybe you're getting tired and you can't push the second half of your workout the way you did your first, and you split it up, you're going to get more gains.
You know what I liked about it is the structure. So I'd get up in the morning, eat breakfast, go to the gym, train after meal one, go home, eat a meal, sleep for an hour, get another meal, and then I go back to the gym. So I had 5 hours in between each workout. So I do like a large body part in the morning and a smaller one in the afternoon. And I would train like on a two on, one off cycle, because I would train 4 workouts over 2 days, right? Twice a day. And then I need a day off after that.
Yeah.
For sure. That's so
twice a day with cardio for prep. I often did because I'm going to go do cardio twice a day anyway, if I'm going in the morning and later. And so why not do, like you said, the smaller body part with your cardio later? So it's just like, I was
doing
workouts
4 times a day. So I was doing 2 separate cardio sessions and 2 separate weight sessions.
And that's a lot.
Because I was paid to do it.
But you got the time. That's your full-time job.
I mean, I was literally had a contract and I said, you know what? I'm going to take the best opportunity with this and I'm going to give it my all. And I feel like my work ethic, I'm known for that, right? I was a workhorse because I didn't have the best genetics. I wasn't supposed to be the guy that's going to come up and battle Ronnie Coleman and win. I mean, I didn't expect to pass the Sean Rays and Levrones and Wheelers and all these guys. So it fell in that era. But I feel like if you do work hard, I mean, Branch Warren will tell you the same thing. It's that blue collar work ethic where I don't, if you look at his physique, I mean, is that Mr. Olympia caliber? I mean, bodies now. Like we just had, Bob Chick on here and there's this controversy with Nick Walker. Like I sit here and Matt sits here and we broke it down. And honestly, Nick Walker 2 years ago, was it 2 years ago?
23.
He could have
pushed Derek.
Do you think,
if it was just those two, he could have.
I don't think Derek I don't think he could beat Derek at his best. Derek and off Derek, perhaps.
But we always talk about Nick Walker's opportunity is going to come similar to like Dexter Jackson. He beat me on an off day. So if people are off, is that the only way Nick Walker can win the Mr. Olympia?
Speaking, it's possible he could win, but probably it's into the 1 in a million type chance where you have 3. Like to have Nick and Hadi and Samson all off at the same time and not have Martin Fitzwater have an on day and so all be off, he could win. But like the odds of that happening where all of them are off on the same day, it would have to be the worst Olympia ever for him to win.
Honest opinion on the Prague show, C-Bum competes in his first open show since turning pro.
Yeah.
He competes against Martin who gets 4th at the Olympia. Martin's not his best at this Prague show. Who wins?
Martin is better than C-Bum in bodybuilding for certain, without any question. It's not even close. I was covering the thing and I had the stats like on last week. Who's going to win, C-Bum versus Martin?
Who do you prefer?
What luck do I prefer? C-Bum by a mile, but for bodybuilding, Martin by a mile.
So you can differentiate the two.
Yeah, like see, as a judge, and I judge based on what they tell me. And so they're saying, pick the best bodybuilder in Classic who has an X frame, who has wide shoulders, small waist. It's like, okay, well, right now it's what's his name? Mike
Sommerfeld.
Yes, by a mile. But do I agree that should be the new look for Classic? No, because that's a bodybuilder. He looks like an amazing open class bodybuilder. He would be a top level.
So is Logan Franklin a better Classic look?
I think Logan Franklin is smaller. He's not nearly as good as Mike Sommerfeld. Mike Sommerfeld, based on the standards of Classic right now, Mike is light years ahead of Logan. But I think they need to change the sport to be the weight classes lower so that a guy who looks like that can't win. Because if you up the weight class a little bit more, all of a sudden is Samson Dota possibly the Classic Olympia champion? Because Samson beats
but Martin Fitzwater.
Yeah. No. I'm trying to say the guy who Mike Sommerfeld.
Oh, yeah.
Samson would beat Sommerfeld in a bodybuilding show, and if it was Classic, he's got a small waist, he's got wide shoulders, he's better than him.
I know, but
shrink the weight class down.
But the problem is Mike's shorter than
It's
a
like
low gap.
5'9", maybe. 5'9".
So there's a whole different weight cap. But I mean, once you're in the pros, you're competing. I mean, it's like rough Diesel.
Yeah.
Like we missed him this year. Does he come back, and is he now the biggest threat to Mike?
Nobody's a threat to Mike. Mike is in a league of his own. Mike is perhaps more dominant than C-Bum right now. It's so way over the top.
You think he pushed C-Bum at the Olympia?
I think he would beat C-Bum.
No, do you think he pushed him at this last Olympia?
He lost by a close battle.
Chris didn't have straight
He
first.
didn't have a straight first, so one judge had him ahead of him, and C-Bum is the 5-time champion, and so if it's close, they're giving it to C-Bum.
So not just one, they throw the top 3, and so at least 4.
So it's close. I'm looking at it, but it shouldn't be close. This shouldn't be set up so that Physique wins, because to my mind, he looks like an amazing 212 competitor that I would want to see him against Keon, or I want to see him in the Open Olympia getting in top 6. The weight categories are so close at this point that there's not enough differentiation between Open and Classic. Like imagine if they said in women's bodybuilding, women's figure, the same woman could compete in either division. A bikini model should look different in figure than the physique. They need to do that.
When are we going to see? I mean, we've watched 212 now advance.
They need to get rid of that.
But
whole category.
I know, but they got Derek and, I mean, now Keon too, but Hottie.
William
all
Bonnick.
came, yes, Bonnick. They all came from
212.
212. When are we going to see Classic move up to Open and actually do well in the Open class?
We've seen it. C-Bum literally.
No, you know who was? Brett Wilkin.
Brett Wilkin, yeah.
Brett Wilkin was Classic.
Stanimal on a Classic show.
If Mike
Yeah, but I'm talking
Sommerfeld
about, like,
competed
high
in Open,
level.
he would win most Open shows.
Think he could, huh?
I think he would win
I
most
think if
Open
Mike
shows
put
right
15
now.
pounds on, he would stand next to
15
anybody.
pounds, he's top 3 in the Olympia.
Yes.
But would Russ
just from the
Diesel-
illusion.
Rough Diesel's not even close to the level of Mike
Would
Sommerfeld.
Keon Pearson win an Open show?
Yes.
now?
Yes.
How would he do in the Mr. Olympia Open? Do you think he'd be in the top 6?
I think he could fight for 6th. I would say 6 to 8th
He's getting
base.
close now, right?
Yep.
The-
if
the
he had
meat-
10 more pounds of muscle, then he's like into that top 3 range.
Who's the best bodybuilder in the world right now in the Open division?
Well, it's Derek. He just won the Arnold. You're as good as your last
Who's
show.
the best physique, though?
The best physique, I would say Samson. Samson shredded, peeled, like peel. Like
Could you get him peeled?
absolutely could. Yeah. Literally with my cookbook
What's he
alone.
missing?
He
Yeah.
needs a cookbook and he needs my Turk builder. And he needs me to say, get
Tell-
on the
tell him where to-
treadmill and
tell
do
him where
some
to
more
get the-
cardio.
Yeah, tell him where to buy this cookbook. We'll link it in the bottom.
Yeah, tell him where to get that cookbook.
I'll go on my website. You got it.
So tell him the website. So
What is it? What's my website?
He didn't even know his website.
I don't know what my website is. I don't do that stuff. If they want to get my cookbook, they got it by now.
Just Google it.
So many of these things. Yeah.
I don't have a cookbook yet, man. I'm going to have to go and buy it.
I got to give
It
you.
doesn't sell out, huh?
Well, we've got.
I know the
a
Turks.
PDF,
The
so
Turks.
that's hard
Every
to sell.
time I go on the internet, the Turks sold out. So
It's keeps sold. I keep smuggling it in from Uzbekistan, but they keep freaking. When they seized it the last order, they seized my Turk. I'm like, guys, it's not a drug.
Because it's the only real one.
Well, it's the only real one in the world that I'm aware of. We scoured the globe for about 2 years to find this stuff.
testing all the
Tested it
others.
multiple times. Like you would not believe what's going on with Uzbekistan right now. Like literally, I'm in with the government. We're giving them money to plant these seeds to produce more of it. It takes 2-3 years to grow. And it's the first supplement ever in this country that's manufactured, made, all done in Uzbekistan and transported to North America. So it's a big
I
occurrence.
think we're going to have some people that are going to argue that.
I would love to see it because I got it.
People just want
I
to
need my
complain
phone.
about
I've got the proof in there right here. First ever supplement manufactured.
How much can you get at a time?
I don't know. What was the something about? We've just approved 20,000 tons of it, but then you get a certain percentage of it at a time.
Is it legal all over the? Is there certain places it is or isn't
No,
legal?
they've sold it in Uzbekistan for decades. It's used in much lower doses to help with like erectile dysfunction and they even did research on it to help with COVID. So, I mean, this stuff is legit. Now, our dose is so much higher than that because I wanted to have it at such a high amount that people would feel it, if you know what I mean. Because you give them a supplement and if they don't notice it working, they're like, well, is it work? And I'm like, well, I want to put it so high that most people can feel it working.
So you're super opinionated, and we just had the Arnold. There's a bunch of controversy with what Arnold said. And
I love it.
And a lot of the men's physique guys seem like they want to band together and not do the show anymore. So what do you think about this?
Well, I think that I'm support the athletes to do what they want. The guy that won, I forget his name.
Ali.
Yeah. He's got the ridiculous, most incredible physique. And when Arnold said, I think that it's bogus, men's classic physique, he was talking about the shorts. He wasn't saying that the athletes were bogus. He's saying the shorts. I've been saying this for years. I want to see their legs. Why are we cutting
I know, but
this
they
up?
brought him up already, Greg. But Did he say anything offensive to the guys, or did he go more at the organization?
He had no offense to the guys, I would say. None. I think Arnold is just trying to better the sport. He's trying to see them show more legs. He was just making fun of some of the guys' legs for having no muscle, of which I did in spades. I'm like, look at this guy. He looks like a giraffe.
But you know what, though? He picked on the open guys that had small calves.
Yeah, he picked on...
Same thing. Ian.
Several years ago, there was the stomach. Kai Green, I said, he was like, do a vacuum. And I was like, he was making fun of these. He's just having a good time. He's making it more interesting. Arnold's just trying to help.
What do you think about the guys not wanting to do the show because they're not getting...
I agree they're not being paid enough. I think that giving $500,000 to open and $10,000 for men's physique, there's no way it's 50 times more popular.
It was 25. 25.
It's 25 now?
It was 25. They just had it wrong. He gave 25,000.
They gave 25 for men's physique.
Which is the second highest in the world.
It's low, but it's like,
What's the Mr. Olympia pay?
50.
50.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's close, but I mean, honestly... Open or classic is what was it 50 100
60
classic is not 10 times less popular than the open, so I think classic deserves more. I think all they should do is keep maybe the open prize where it is right now and then start bumping up the other divisions rather than kind of making the separation be bigger.
You're traveling all over the world. Do you think men's physique is the most popular division right now?
Yes.
Like if you go to the
bodybuilding is by far the least popular, and because no one has enough muscle for that category. And the problem is because the standards for men's physique are, I'm an open or whatever, a 212 bodybuilder. I'm a pro bodybuilder. If I went and competed in men's physique right now, they'd say you're too small. The last show I did as a 212 guy, they said, oh, you look great. You must be in men's physique. And I'm like, hey, I'm glad you think I'm handsome enough to compete in this division, but I'm like supposed to be more jacked than that.
Why do you think there's so much drama in the men's physique division? We were just talking about this. We had Jeremy on.
Those guys are always fighting each other and are always like
how come the open men don't fight like the
Yes.
men's physique guys? You know, like
they do
like
have some spats.
You know, Jeremy had his tiffs with Brandon Hendrickson, and now Aaron Banks. Obviously, there's always some sort of going at each other. Yeah.
I think they're just doing it to be known or noticed or be spoken about, because like even negative publicity is good publicity.
Do you think they should add an extra pose to the men's physique instead of a front and a back pose?
I just think they need to have shorter shorts. I don't really think they need an extra pose.
Maybe a side pose.
They all want to do a bicep. They want to do this. They're finding every excuse to flex. All these men's physique guys, they want to be in classic. They just need a category where they can actually show their legs. I don't call it a muscle model division or something. They need something so that smaller guys who are not on every drug in the world can compete. That's what I want to see.
What division would you say they need to create next?
They call it the Abercrombie Fitness Model Man division, the Beach Body division, the Classic Physique Light division. There's just, women have like 6 categories, 6 or 7. Men have what, 3 or 4? I think it's stupid. And 212 needs to go. 212 is open. If you're an open class bodybuilder and you can't compete against open guys, well, get bigger, get better. Too bad. Place last. Somebody has to place last.
So you agree with Lee Priest? He said he never would have probably done 212.
212 is
he was top 5 in the Olympia.
Consolation prize. It's equal to masters. Should the open class bodybuilders have masters every time? I'm 49. You're 51. Is
51,
it?
Yeah.
We could just compete, have masters 50 plus, have it at every show. But would it be as respected?
Should a masters stay in masters though? If you turn pro as a master, are you allowed to compete in an open
I think
show?
they're just being nice and trying to get more people to show up to competitions. Because if you're, for example, 50 and you turn pro, you know you're not at that level. And so you turn 50, you turn pro, and now all of a sudden you're trying to compete against everyone else. It's just a consolation prize to have people say, I'm a pro, so they can make more money in coaching. And I really don't want to see them on stage. You're boring me. I mean, you go to an Arnold Classic show, they're all amazing, but the last place, 1 or 2 guys, I'm like, I'm not even looking, I'm texting. I'm at that level. But when it's an open regular show, like a regular show, they're all like, you're like, wow, that guy's good, that guy's good, that guy plays 5th and he's good. You go to an amateur show, you're staring at that guy who's not even good. So as the levels go up, the bottom end, I don't want to see any of those guys. I want to see the top 5 come out and pose. I don't want to see 12 place. And like at the Olympia with like 50 guys in classic physique, I don't want to see anyone outside the top.
How do you think they should do? What do you think they should do with the Olympia and having 60 guys on a stage?
They need to make it harder to qualify.
Well, I know, but there's shows all over the world. I mean, there's how many?
You know what it is?
So you qualify by winning 2 shows. If it's not a big show.
So you think there should be? Do you think there should be a cut?
Yeah. Okay. So any show that has less than 10 people that showed up, too bad it didn't count. Oh, too bad you won. There was 9 guys that showed up. You got first place. Congratulations, but you don't go to the Olympia. That like just if you win 2 shows, automatically.
We've been talking about this lately because class bikini. Classic and men's physique, like they're all qualifying for the Olympia. And the Olympia flies all these people out great.
It's expensive
Remember that
too.
I bet you they spend 600 to 800,000 on expenses for all those athletes.
It's a lot, and they're
Yeah,
going to all go
400.
for free. So get rid of the free.
I know, but how would you feel if you qualified and your family flew to Vegas from, let's just say, Colombia or something, right? And you're not getting a call. I mean, what?
When I qualified for my pro carb, there was 27 guys in my weight class. The top 5 got to do routines, and the top 15 were canceled after the prejudge. You walked in like that, and if you weren't in that top 15, you were done. You didn't go out at the night show, and people were flying from all over Canada. Canada's a big country, to go and see you, and they didn't get to do anything. And so, too bad. It's a show. This is the qualifying standards, and if you don't make it, you don't make it. And so I would say it's harder to qualify. You got to win 2 shows, or guess what? We're not paying for you to go. If you want to show up for fun because you qualify, by all means, or just
It
change
has
the
to be
qualifying.
something.
Name the sport where if you win one show or whatever else that you automatically get to go to the finals.
Yeah, no
I don't
one's
care
going
what
to
sport it
NHL
is.
playoffs or basketball. There's like a qualifier.
Olympics, anything, you have to get to that last stage.
When I was growing up, I had to win my provincials, get top 3 there to go to the Atlantics, and then I'd compete in that show, get top 3 there, and then to get top 3, then you could go to nationals. Now you get, well, like Sam Sulek, he did his first show, he won, deservedly so, and then he was his next show, it's a pro qualifier. I couldn't just pro qualifier by doing 2 shows. There were levels to it. And
Is that Canada, though? Or
Canada was this
It
way.
used to be like that here, remember? They used to have
Local,
levels. It was
state,
level 1, level
national.
2, level 5 was national, level 4 was
what's
state.
funny is that people would go from like say a Jay Cutler Classic, and then they'd go to like the junior nationals, and then they'd go to nationals. It was almost like the unwritten rule.
But
Like-
you needed the publicity too back
Yes,
then,
yes, you're
because the magazines were there and they weren't at those other shows.
It's like there's this upcoming bodybuilder. He's 19 years of age. I don't know his name.
unbelievable.
He's sponsored by Fuad.
Unbelievable.
Hostile, and it doesn't make sense. He's 227 pounds. I messaged him, what weight class do you need to make? 203 is his weight limit. So he's 24 pounds out. He looks sick. But in my mind, I'm going to make a video on this. Guy needs to get off the drugs or lower the doses. Like, he probably isn't openly saying he's on steroids. I don't think he's natural. If I do a natty or not, I'm like, okay, not natty. Whatever drug he's on too much because he has to lose 24 pounds. And I don't see 24 pounds of fat on this guy's body. So he has to lose muscle. So why are we taking high doses as a teenager when you don't need that much? Wouldn't we want to see him stretch out his career? He's got such good genetics that he could be 100% natural and still walk up on stage and probably beat me. He looks that good. So why be on anything?
This kid?
yeah.
I hate the fact that the young guys are 18 on gear already. There's another guy, he turned pro. Youngest pro ever. He's 19. He's a classic physique guy. Holy shit, he was coached by the guy that coaches the Tren Twins.
Kyle Wilkes.
Kyle Wilkes, he's coached. He did a great job, but obviously...
Anthony Montanello, yeah.
Yeah, Anthony.
Yeah.
Wait, like, turn
Yeah,
pro
but
a bit later.
he's stopped now.
He stopped
He
what?
stopped. He quit.
He quit competing? Seriously, I have no idea. So he turned pro and he's done with the sport.
He's
What happened?
just change of, I mean, we all go through transition in life, and he just said he
Wow.
wasn't happy with the direction of what he was going like.
Unbelievable. I'm going to do a video on this topic. This is exactly what I'm saying. You're into sport and you love it and the dopamine and everyone's saying how great you look and you're going to be the next C-bomb. And then all of a sudden you're like, maybe he's going to have negative side effects. Maybe it's his health. And it's like, couldn't you have done it natural? Like I was 19. I started training at 10. I was competing at 18. I'd done 20 some shows by the time I was 25. I wasn't even thinking of steroids. It's like, guys, do your first show natural and then go.
Do you think Chris has made the biggest impact in bodybuilding in this generation?
I think Chris has influenced more people to take steroids than almost any other bodybuilder.
Oh, I'm
in the
not
world.
saying take steroids, but just
To be classic, that to make popularize the sport.
Yeah.
He's the second guy to Arnold Schwarzenegger, has been an influence on taking up bodybuilding. Then, of course, it would be followed by Sam Sulek. But the problem is C-Bum got his physique taking steroids at 18. If C-Bum had been natural 18, 19, 20, he would have still had an amazing physique. C-Bum natural would still beat me on steroids in a classic physique show.
Genetics.
Yeah, the genetics. And so the fact that he had to take steroids at 18, it just shows like, why? And I made a video and I said, I love bodybuilding more than Sam Sulek and more than C-Bum. And they're like, no, you don't. Look at these guys. I'm like, I loved it so much that I was able to do 42 shows natural. You have to really love a sport to not take the drug that you know will make you win and do it natural. If you love it that much, do it natural and save it for later, at least till you're 25 when your brain is done developing.
When was the first YouTube that you actually launched? Was it actually training or you doing this more of talking to your audience type?
2006, I was
I literally
there,
just looked it up.
and I was
19 years
just
he said.
showing off.
Really?
I just really honest.
So you
I was
started
showing off how strong.
So
I
you
was.
started a good.
I wanted to ask, what made you go to YouTube then? Because it wasn't.
I wanted to
YouTube
show
wasn't
off.
popular.
But
at that
who
point.
influenced you? You had to.
Somebody was a
to-
powerlifter and said, Greg, how much can you bench? I'm like, I don't know. I did like 315 for like 20 reps or something. And I was like, a smaller guy, natural. No way. And I'm like, well, I'll prove it to you. I'll film it. And then so like this is back in the day. You couldn't just. And so they're like, put it on YouTube and then I can see it. So I was posting my squat, my bench, my
With a
deadlift.
camcorder, did you shoot
With
it?
a
or-
little $300 camcorder. I'd put it on the floor and tilt it up and I'd press the button. I'd record and I'd upload. I have no tech skills. And so it's just literally, I'm just going there to show off. And then I posted for like maybe a year.
And it wasn't monetized then.
No, I didn't
correct?
even know what a follower was. In 2010, I looked, and I'm like, I had like 2,925 followers. I'm like, what's a follower? I had no idea what that was. Then I started making videos about Anavar. And I'm like, Anavar, this is the dose I took, or this was what you should take. This is the dangers and stuff. Posted a few videos, and then I look back like 2 years later, and I'm like, 600,000 views. That sounds like a lot. And I'm like, maybe I'll do more videos like that. So then I had a video on Winstrol, testosterone, Tren, equipoise, every single steroid and SARM I could think of, and they were all getting a lot of views. Then I'm like, people need to know who's natural. The Rock's natural. Oh, come on. Mark Wahlberg, give me a break. So I just record out of the blue. I didn't know how to edit. So it was just, you got to talk, and then you press upload, because this is all I know how to do. I had no great thumbnails, and it's like 1 million views. I'm like, more of those. So every famous person that I thought was on steroids, I'd say, this guy's on steroids. And they were all getting great views. The following was going up. By the time I hit 10,000, I was like, I'm going to get 1 million followers for sure. I was like, I hit I got the cheat code. I was like, I know I'm going to go there. And it just skyrocketed to 100, then to 1 million. I was like, man, the sky's the limit. It was a fun time.
How many videos have you put on YouTube at this point?
3,700. Long form too, not like little shorts. Like
So how long does a YouTube video have to be, Greg? What do
8 minutes.
Okay, so that's your
If it's-
why for ads or
Ads, you can add in another ad, so the monetization, you can make double the money on a video that's like 8 minutes.
how have you seen that kind of change the monetization?
I think it was
change over
12
years?
minutes at one point, but I'm not like, I don't do the ads. I don't edit any of my videos. I don't do thumbnails or titles or any of that stuff. I just record and walk away and just move on. So I just,
So you think the raw, is that why Sam Sulek stuff is so popular too? Because it's so raw?
Sam Sulek's so popular because you see the passion. He also has a very soothing voice, and he hit everything the right way. He started on TikTok and then grew to Instagram and YouTube, and so he had a following, brought it up. And, at first he was doing a little bit of things that maybe he doesn't agree with now, like promoting ego lifting and stuff. Got the viral videos, but people just love that he can talk and go through this thing, and he stands out from everyone else. I think if there was 100 Sams, Sam wouldn't be as
Do you
popular.
think your persona, like right now you're talking like normal, like your intensity on some of your videos, do you think that's inviting for people, or it makes you stand out?
I absolutely think so, because people would be like, man, the parrot from Aladdin, that voice, they remember it. To stand out amongst 1,000 people posting the
When did you
exact
figure
same
that
content.
out, though? When did you figure it out? Did you
It's
just do it
slow.
one time and say, wow, this is a catch?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I remember specifically reading the comments and then being like, wow, you were really upset and angry in this video. I was calling out like a guy with a snake diet or something, snake man. He would eat once a day, and he was like, that's
Well,
the
they
way to lose
compare
weight.
you to the guy Gilbert
Godfrey.
Yeah,
Gilbert
yeah.
Godfrey. Yeah, it's similar.
Yeah,
similar
Gilbert
voice.
Godfrey on steroids. That's a great one. Jordan Peterson, angry on steroids. I've been Jordan Peterson on steroids. That was the first thing. I'm like, who's Jordan Peterson? I didn't know who he was 5 years ago. Now I read his books and stuff, and I love this guy. But I would read the comments. They're like, wow, you can see how passionate you are. I'm like, well, I'm going to find out. I'm going to get angry and then find a video and talk about it. I would do that. And then literally I did a show. I was on Tren, and then that made me angry. So then some of those videos are like, they're more
So the
aggressive,
voice
more
was a
edge.
little more.
It was put on.
But it wasn't put on if you're on
I'm
Tren.
upset.
And you're,
I'm like angry. So I'm like, okay.
You know what I've always said? Effort matters with everything. And if you have passion, people see passion, they feel passion, they want to keep listening to it.
Yeah, like I don't need to. Like people are like, "Man, you're on coke or something." Like, how do you do these videos? I'm like, I don't even take caffeine. I would just get up and do the videos. But
You do
give
have-
me a
you do have
topic
caffeine
that I'm
right there,
passionate about. Yeah, I think there's 100 in this one. But like, yeah, give me a video that I'm passionate about. I loved arguing and debating. I was a motor mouth. My uncle called me a motor mouth when I was 10. I remember these things. I was a class clown, so I always liked to yap. And so I got a platform where I can talk into a camera and just go off.
Have you ever made enemies where you show up at an event and someone's in your face?
Yeah, Mike Israetel.
She's laughing over there.
I just told Jay before you got there. I
You're
said,
like this. You're like...
I just told Jay before you got here. I said, I think they made up. I saw a video come
We have
recently.
squashed it.
Well, we had Michael
prior to that
the podcast here before.
I think he brought your name up on the podcast.
He did?
I think he did. Yeah.
It was.
I think you guys always kind of.
It was the hardest one yet.
Why? Because you said he wasn't a good bodybuilder, or
That would be one of the 10 insults that I would have talked to. Yeah.
You argued
Where did this
his
He would
start
say one bad thing about me, and then I would come back with 10. I was like, yeah.
Was there a reason that this? How did this start and go? Like, did one?
Like
was
you
there,
picked the most viral guy because they're pretty.
We had a
viral
beef
RP
5
state.
years ago when he was more popular than me, and I would make I don't know, maybe I made fun of it. He was like saying you could train with 3 IR, like 3 reps in reserve, and I'm like, man, you got to train harder than the last time. And so I just kind of tried to go against him because he was more viral than me. He had more following than me. And so I found that if you talk about people who are more famous than you, then that a lot of their followers can come onto your train of thought. So I was all the train harder than last time, push really hard, go hard. And so we had a debate. And the debate didn't go very well because he kind of made fun of me throughout the debate, and I just kind of wanted to talk. Like I was talking
Like you
this.
actually did a live debate?
Not live, but like Omar Yusuf moderated it.
Okay.
We went against each other, and he was like, and since this time, he's like, I was actually disrespectful to you, and it didn't come over well on his side because I was just there to have like a talk. And so from that time on, he kind of had a little bit of a beef against me. We met in person. He kind of made fun of me a lot, and then I was like, all right, fine. And, he'd said a few things that were not true about me. And I was like, okay, for every one thing you say about me, I'll find 10 things to say about you. And I never let up. And, it was a bad time. We did a lot of negative publicity. And we finally decided, like, okay, it's got to stop. Mike's like, I don't want to say anything bad about you, and I don't need to do this to you as well. So now it's not that I won't speak out against him. Like, if he says something that I disagree with, I'm not just going to
that's an
pretend
opinion.
it didn't happen.
That's an opinion, or
but I'm not going to be
experience,
disrespectful to him. I'm not going to say you suck as this or that. I'm not going to say anything bad. I'll just say, hey, this opinion that you had, I don't agree with it, and let's talk about it.
Yeah.
So it's coming from a different place. Like if you said something that I didn't agree with, I'd say, Jay, I don't agree. Like even though I like,
I don't know if you've done. Yeah, I don't know if you've done video. You've probably done some things about you don't agree with the way I was training or whatever else. Or
yeah, maybe I said you didn't train as hard or something, but it's like a different opinion than how I would train.
People used to say that to me when I was trying to beat Ronnie Coleman and saying, you need to do more training like Ronnie, 800-pound squats and that stuff. But that just wasn't my style.
Yeah. And I learned over the years that like there are several ways to train. Now more than ever, I understand that we're all different people. And even though science says this, science says that, science says on average, this group of people will train the best by doing it this way. But there's outliers in everything.
Are you able to keep up with anyone's content? Like, do you?
Most people's content. I watch 11 hours a day of content to come up with reactionary videos. I watch all day. I've got Sam Sulek. I'm watching all his videos. I got another one planned. That 19-year-old kid. Now we're talking about Antropov, whatever the guy.
Anthony.
I'm like,
Montoya.
all these videos are in there. Yeah, I always am watching content. I'm always looking.
So when you're here in Vegas and you're like on a little, getaway.
I work steady.
Like you're still planning. Like when you get home, is your mind?
I record videos while I'm.
Oh, you are here. Okay.
Like I did. I saw Andrew Tate was challenged Buddy to a bench press. Bradley Martin. Yeah. And I got the whole thing memorized.
Did he actually bench press or?
Well, he did 3 plates with assistant 3/4 weight up, but he did 4 reps. He was spotting him, and Bradley did 11. But then he's like, "Well, let's lighten the weight. Let's do a plate." And he got like 49 reps. They're competing, and Andrew Tate's like, "Well, I'm not going to give up. Let's do it again, and then again." But I said the biggest contest you should have is who has less hair, because Bradley Martin, he's got it all block with the hat.
You got to send him to that. You got to send him to
the hair transplants.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I think
get
it's
some
so
confidence
common
back.
Now. What like do you pay attention to certain people? Like, is there someone you follow in
Will Tennyson and Jeff Nippard? Any video that Jeff Nippard posts, I want to watch it because there's a lot of we agree on so many things. Even had a beef back in the back, me back in the day we did, but now we squashed that. So I love his videos. He's very science based, and so a lot of times I'll piggyback off what he says and see do I agree or disagree with him. Will Tennyson, he made this great video. He tried 5 legal performance enhancing drugs. I made a video on all 5 of those things, 5 separate videos which I haven't posted yet. So by watching them, I can make content about that because people find it interesting. Plus, Will's funny, so it makes for great videos.
Do you think fitness space has a lot of drama, though, in general?
It's mostly drama. Like, it's a lot. People like drama more than anything. Like, me and Mike Isertel, those are some of the most epic watch
So
videos.
you're done now. The battle's finished. You're not going to battle
Literally,
anymore?
I posted a video on Mike, and it was called Mike Has Big Balls yesterday. And everyone's like, the beef is back on. I'm like, it's not back on. Mike Isertel's been on steroid for 13 years. He hasn't come off. And he says his testicles haven't shrunk in size. And so I'm like, all right, Mike has big balls. And then he was saying, if he goes off steroids, there's a 90% chance that he'll fully regain his testicular function. No problem. He'll have no trouble going on. The odds are 48.4% based on the studies that I read, which had 600 people, 600 plus participants. So I said, he said it's 90-10. Peter Attia said it can't be that much. And I said, well, I'm just going to go with the research, which was like 48-point-something% return normal function after 3 years. So most people at that level of abuse would probably need HRT. I even said me, you, Phil, all these guys that are, we're on HRT after. It's not normal.
You think it's absolutely necessary, though?
HRT?
Yeah.
Not for most people, but I think that to feel like you used to, I think it is. I think if you just accept that you're older, like, and you just say, whatever. Like, if you want to have sex once a week instead of every day, probably.
Do you think there's a sufficient test level that someone should, like, I just did I'm on a TRT dose of like 1 cc a week.
Is it 200 milligrams a week?
Yes,
probably.
And my total test was 425. Is that too low?
If you feel great, then it's plenty.
That's exactly that's what
we've always said. That it doesn't matter. It's all how you feel.
Right, as long as your markers are in place, right? All the other.
So there's a test that levels in the 400s. It depends on what's your testosterone that you can actually use, like bioavailable testosterone versus just your test. You might have really low tests, like 400s is below average, but you might have free test levels.
Like if you do blood work, what is like? Do you even look at your testosterone score?
Oh yes, absolutely. Mine is between 550 and 765, and I went to the doctor. I'm like with Transcend. I'm like, can I go higher? And they're like, oh yeah, that's kind of below average for. So they said go to 200. And I said, well, I'll split the difference. I'll go to 170. I did 170 for a week, and I was starting to get puffy and bloated looking. And I like having that chiseled like 8% body fat physique. Plus, when I gain weight, I have to add weight to my bike racing, so it slows me down on the bike because it's a weight thing. And so I said, no, I'm going to go back to 140. But you could definitely go higher as long as your cholesterol levels are in check and whatnot. But if you feel good at 200 a week, then you shouldn't go higher.
So what Milos tells me, if I'm not at least 1,000.
I saw that video.
He says,
I saw that.
He says I'm like a female.
Yeah, I was like, this is not the video. I made a video
because I
on
think
that
you
exact
said you said. Oh, you did make a video on it.
Yes, I
so
remember that video. I couldn't believe he said that. I was just like, "Are you serious right now?"
He sits right in your chair right there. He says it every week,
Oh, it's.
If you're under 1,000, you're a woman.
Yeah.
I sent him the latest.
He probably didn't even believe me.
No, so I sent it to him. I took a video, and he said something about a tampon. He has a tampon for me.
I thought at one point yours was like over 1,000.
It was 2,000.
It was 2,000 the one time. And he was like, perfect.
Fit for 50.
Yeah, that's because you were taking everything under the sun.
It's on your cycle,
Yeah, man. Yeah, I just think that you should be healthy, and this is my advice. Take the lowest dose that makes you happy. If you're happy at 200, then be there. I'm at 140. If I get to 200, I would put on so much muscle so quick. 200 gonna make a big difference.
I don't want to get bigger.
You're already jacked.
Well, that's what I mean. Not compared to
what I
was
ever competing, but you're just a 50-year-old guy,
right? So
you don't need that.
But I remember going in the gym like this, man, and I'd go in after the first set. I was explosive, and now I feel like I'm pumping bones. That's how it feels.
What an old fuck you are.
You need to get into bike racing because your mind will shift. Like, I'm a bike racer that is jacked because that's how I see myself. So
do you get on like the spandex shorts?
I have all the Mike Thurston black.
I want to see you in with the helmet
thing right over.
Really?
Oh yeah, I make videos.
And so you're on. Are you actually on recording yourself when you're doing this, or
I've got several videos of me racing like top level cyclists around the world, like racing,
and you talk as you're doing it, or
I don't do many of those because I'm just like I'm
locked in. Yeah,
no, you need to shit talk them.
I can hardly. You can type in the chat bar. I need to hire someone to sit next to me. I've never used EPO, but it would certainly help my performance. I use GO2 Max.
I used the EPO
just to have more red blood cells, to increase the recovery. So I wouldn't want to use that because I was
using bodybuilding. You think it's a bodybuilding drug?
It could
EPO?
Absolutely help, but the problem is, do you really want to take that many different drugs? But I mean, if you have more endurance and you're not resting between sets,
but you think it's good for blood cell like a volumizer?
It's absolutely going to help.
Victor Conte said high levels of testosterone don't mimic exact EPO, but it raises it
raises
enough
red blood cells.
to where it gives you the similar effect as EPO.
Oh, for sure. I'm much faster with HRT than without. And when I was on EQ or any steroid, really, you have more red blood cells, but then more red blood cells, blood becomes more vicious and thicker. And so do we really want to have more heart attacks? Because it can happen. Like if you have a high red blood cell count, like a lot of people are donating blood just to get it down. So there's a risk reward.
Was there a point in your career that you concerned your health more than ever? Is that today? Like you watch?
I would say, yeah, more now than before. But I remember.
Is it because you're getting older now?
Yeah, it's like death is more in my mind that it could actually happen versus I'm invincible. I had that mentality until I think the last show, and I was on minimal doses, like 400 milligrams of this and a couple hundred of that. Like the last show that I did, because I competed in classic physique, the weight cap was 180.
What show was
back
it?
Then. I did the Niagara Falls and I did Germany. I did a couple. I got fourth in Niagara, and that was my last show I ever did. I was a couple days out. I'm doing the curls. Like I'm just looking crazy. I'm shredded. And then there's a nosebleed. And then I had 2 nosebleeds in a row working out. And I'm like, I'm getting nosebleeds working out. I'm like, oh my God, I'm like, this can't be good. I got to stop. And then I started more and more into the bike racing, and I haven't competed since.
So that is your fulfillment at this point, you think?
I don't think I could ever be placed higher than 4th in a pro show. And the category in classic is now back up. It's up 7-8 pounds from when I competed. So I'd literally have to go back to the old doses that I used to get, because I like back in my old days, my steroid cycles were significantly higher than when I did classic, because classic had to downsize. But now I'd have to go back to my old size.
So how do you handle the cycling when you're in Vegas for 4 days?
I rode an hour every morning.
Okay.
I rode this morning before this. I haven't
not
missed a
on your
day.
competitive.
No, I'm doing
split.
zone 2 cardio,
Okay.
it's called. There's 5 zones, and so I'm going at a steady pace, like heart rate, like 125, 130. Like I could.
So
have
you
a
want a spin
conversation.
bike when you're in Vegas, or what kind of
just a
bike is it
basement
on?
Bike, like whatever bike they got in the gym. I'm practicing my Spanish on Duolingo. I'm watching my videos. I'm reading my DMs. I'm doing my Instagram.
Why is that important to you?
Which one? The zone
Learning the Spanish.
It's a challenge. It's just something I set out to do.
Can you do that at 49 years old?
I did it. I took 1 year. I learned Spanish. Hablas español? Poco.
That's the one thing I regret of anything. People say, do you have any regrets for bodybuilding? And I always say, and you're going to say, well, why don't you learn? I never learned any other languages besides.
Well, you're only 2 years behind me. It's not too late. We can practice Spanish in a year. We'll have a Spanish podcast.
What's the best? Yeah. What's the best way to learn another language?
I got a girl from Colombia that speaks to me. We have 5 lessons a week now, but I don't make them all. Maybe make 2 or 3. And we just practice.
What do you do? You do like a call, like a FaceTime?
She gets on FaceTime, and she it's cool because her brother is a guy that rides in the Tour de France and cycling and stuff. And I'm like 6 weeks into this chatting, and I'm like talking about how much I like Montar and BC, and you know what I mean, like riding a bike and stuff. And then she's just listening. How good are you? What's your watts? And I'm like, yeah, and I'm kind of bragging a little bit. She's like, oh, finally. Oh, yeah, my brother races in the Tour de France. I'm like, your brother rides in the Tour de France and you didn't drop this on me? So we have so much fun stuff we can talk about, like the bike riding and just we'll talk about her. She's an eye surgeon. So we talk about that. She's like, oh, cirugía de ojo, like whatever it was. Like, so, yeah, see, I got the Spanish.
So Matt can talk to her about his eye.
I've had all kinds of surgeries on my eyes.
Oh, yeah. She's
Transplant.
Transplant,
yeah. Oh, yeah. So
my eye is awful.
You've got to learn. It's just like a child. So what I did is I stopped watching TV. I started reading books like Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules of Life. I've read a lot of these books on the manosphere, like to self-reflect and grow. And I want to see the world from somebody else's lens rather than my own, because I'm like, have I been brainwashed my whole life to think a certain way? And I'm like, I got to let go of what I thought, reread, and then re-examine the world from a different vantage point.
Did you learn? So you went to China. Did you learn any of that language?
That is so hard. I'm not smart enough.
What's the hardest language?
Chinese.
Icelandic.
Is Russian? Is
Icelandic.
Russian hard?
Icelandic.
Oh, okay.
Icelandic's the hardest.
Man, sometimes for Billy, I'll have to say like, I don't know, like Happy New Year and all these things. And he'll be like, I'm like, whoa. Like,
did you learn any when you were there?
It's so hard.
What do you speak?
little bit of
French and English. What else? Spanish. Okay.
And
Is she
Japanese and Gen
See,
Z. She's good at Gen Z and Japanese. Gen Z to me is a language.
So like in China and Hong Kong, they're two different languages, but they're not, it's not words. Everything's tones, and you have to understand the tone. So even when I lived in Hong Kong, when we go into mainland China, it's a totally different language. One's Cantonese is 9 tones, one's Mandarin has 4 tones. Wow. So even the people that I would travel with that grew up in Hong Kong, they were as useless as I was in mainland China because they could speak Cantonese, but they didn't know any Mandarin.
So this coach you have, she speaks great English and Spanish. And
she's French a little bit too.
Okay.
And if you're like I took French bilingual till grade 8, so I took French immersion. So I had a little bit of French background, so I'm decent in French, better in French than Spanish. So a lot of the words are the same. I'm like, wait a minute, I recognize that from Spanish. I'll put that or from French into Spanish, and so that helps me too. But it's practice. And I'd have Duolingo. So I'm on my bike and I'm reading words and I'm pronouncing the words, and it just passes the time. Like, I don't just sit and do cardio. I can't. I got to watch or work. And if you cut out TV, I would waste 4 hours a day watching, I don't know, like whatever.
So I figured you'd sit on the bike and watch like YouTube so you could get content ideas.
I do that. It's YouTube or Spanish. And I can only watch so much, and I need a break, and I'll just Spanish for a while and go back and forth.
If you wanted to learn Spanish, you just have to go to a country that speaks Spanish and just immerse yourself. Like one of my good friends.
It's too much. You need a level of understanding so that you know half of what they're saying.
One of my good friends moved to Colombia, and he had the basic understanding, and he said, I learned fluent Spanish within 90 days because he had no choice but to learn it.
That's a lot, though.
No choice, because nobody would speak English to him, and he's like, I had no choice but to learn.
I don't know. I'm under you. I talk about my memory, how bad it is, like remembering names. So you can imagine I'm trying to remember Spanish, and I'm thinking also this is going to help with like
and it surprises me too. Yeah, you could take all these cognitive things. Creatine's going to help with your right. So, I figured you do content on these people and you don't know their names.
It's embarrassing. Yeah. Trust me. I'm like, am I going to talk to Jay and be like, Jay, what's his last name? Yeah. I'm like, that's the biggest thing. Like,
is he that bad or
names?
Is he that bad with names?
She knows the Olympians' names more than me. Like the Samson Dotas. I'm like, who's that guy? The black guy, and he's like really good. He's tall. He's like 6'2". And she's like, are you talking about this guy? Like,
it's so funny because all the females that come and I'm like, they say, oh, I'm a huge fan. I said, how are you a fan of me? And they're like, I said, you need a husband or a boyfriend or something that introduced, because no woman watches bodybuilding. Like,
she watched all my videos before we met. She slid in my DMs after buying my cookbook and was like, yo, I'm in Halifax doing some eye surgeries. Do you want to go work out? I'm like, hey, you look fine. I'll take you out to dinner. So that's how.
So did you learn from the cookbook? Yeah. You use any of the recipes?
With my cookbook.
What is the best thing out of the cookbook that you could say?
I like the pumpkin loaf.
Yeah. What's a pumpkin loaf?
We make, it's a pumpkin loaf. It's like so low in calories. She's just like addicted to low calorie stuff. You've done that a lot.
Is that all natty ice cream?
Yeah.
Pumpkin loaf, it's just like it's made with pumpkin and Greek yogurt and protein powders and whatnot. And we actually make it into cookies now. We've altered the recipe.
And how'd you get these ideas?
20 plus
years trial and error,
like making videos. Like I was like, as a kid, I was like, oh, apple crisp, I love this. How can I make it lower in calories? I was a lobster fisherman. I make a birthday cake, and I was like, 3 whole eggs in oil. What if I just don't put any oil and put 5 bananas in it, and I add in like a dozen egg whites? What'll happen? I make the cake, and I'm like, it's damn good. And all of a sudden, I'm giving it to my friends, and the test was if they liked it, it was a good recipe. Like, Greg, this banana protein pancake thing, it tastes good.
So you updating it still?
I'm at version 3.1 now.
Okay.
I had the 1, and then the 2, and then the 3, 3.1. I made a collab cookbook, and I made a vegan, vegetarian book. Didn't sell many copies. So I was like...
You must get a lot of people that purchase it and then say, hey, this would be a great idea for another recipe.
Yeah.
They spill it out to you that way.
And you just experiment, and you see one recipe, and then you change it a bit. I'm like, oh, that's a good recipe, but I need less calories. So I always will say, okay, if you made it with whole eggs, I'm just getting rid of the
How many calories are you eating a day right now?
4,000 would be average. If I eat less, I was 186.2 pounds yesterday. I was 190.8 today.
So you,
I was like,
are you like a one big meal eater, or do you have certain meals?
More than 1,000 calories every breakfast.
Yeah, same.
Except for here. Like when I'm traveling, it's weird because I eat mostly protein bars. Like we used to eat out, but we're going to go to a restaurant and sit there and not want to eat that because there's too much fat or this and that. So we're not big, like, we're mostly healthy eaters. So she'd rather like go to a grocery store and get Greek yogurt.
I agree with
protein
that.
bars. We're kind of like we both have money. Like she's an eye surgeon, we can afford to go eat out, but it's like we don't want to eat out. We'll go and eat like the cheap, chicken slices that's in the fridge. And so we're kind of a strange couple.
I'm a super like particular eater. Like I'm anywhere we go.
We go
They
to
always
Cheesecake
ask us-
Factory and get chicken and rice.
Everyone,
Yeah, I
asks
cannot
me-
eat at Cheesecake Factory. It's just I can't eat pizza.
Everyone
It's not
asks
my
me,
thing.
"What do you eat?" And I say, "Chicken and rice, chicken and rice." Like I can eat that. If I'm going and someone wants to prep my food, I just say chicken and rice. Like, and they're like, "I can't believe you can just eat the same thing over and over." It's
I could do it.
But I always have this thing. I say I eat for function, not for taste. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Where you're having a cookbook that tastes good and it's functional.
Well, with the cookbook, it allows people to eat the foods that they like, but not feel guilty about it. Like I'm like, I can't eat pizza. Like if you're dieting for a bodybuilding show, I'm gonna eat chicken, broccoli, and rice. 90% of people can't do that diet. Like Ian Blair can, you can, but like most people can't. And so if you give them a way to eat what they like, but for less calories, like half, it's like it's easy.
Who's
Can
the
I-
most disciplined bodybuilder you've ever met?
Ian Valair is the most disciplined I've ever met, and Eva Dunbar was the most intense trainer I've ever trained. She got an IFBB Pro Guard in women's physique.
That's Derek Farnsworth's.
Yes,
Yes.
You know her and you know him.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, cool.
We grew up together.
This
Yeah.
girl I was coaching her for powerlifting. She's just a normal like girl, like competed figure. And then she's like, "Yeah, how much did you squat?" She's like, "I don't know. It was like 315 for
Super
10."
strong. Yeah.
I'm like, "No, you didn't. Send me a video." And so she's sending me the video, and they're like pretty good squats, like not below parallel, but this is like, I'm like, "You need to do a powerlifting contest." And she goes to powerlifting with like 2 months of training, breaks all the national records. I'm like, "You're born to be a powerlifter." And then she ended up breaking, like, she was like world champion, world highest Wilks score ever. Like this girl was meant for strength. She's bench pressing over 3 plates and deadlifting over 500 pounds, squatting like just ridiculous weights. And we'd go on a function, you're training with a bunch of fitness influencers. We're all just fooling around. She's got the 110-pound dumbbells just like an animal. It was crazy.
Super strong.
Oh yeah, like I've never seen a woman where a strong man has to struggle to keep up with her. Like she would have like 12 plates on each side of the leg press, and I'd be like, "Holy, I don't know if I can do that." Like really impressive.
Yeah, even Derek squatted a ton for
he
his
was super
size.
strong.
He's a strong guy as well. Oh yeah,
And he was natural for a long time
I think
too.
I competed against him before. He was a guy that competed in like the 212.
Yeah, but he's still in.
I
2000.
followed him as a kid. He was one of the guys I looked up to in the magazines because he was like more of a lighter guy.
He got me found. He got me found basically. So they were calling around Jim saying, "Hey, anyone good? Any talent?"
Yeah.
And I was 19, and he's like, "Yeah, there's this kid from Worcester, Massachusetts that's like everyone's talking about with big legs." And then the magazine guys started calling me from California, and when I lived in Massachusetts, and he kind of got me found.
Well,
In that sense, we go way, way back. He used to do a lot of deep tissue massage work with me. I was super big on the tissue therapy. It was like stretching the fascia and all that to try to manipulate the fibers more. And I think that really helped with a lot of detail, conditioning, everything like that. Do you believe in any of that stuff?
I've never done all the stretching and whatnot, but I think if it helps with recovery, then it's definitely help you to build more muscle.
Yeah. I think it's, for me, it worked. I mean, you remember, I used to spend about 6 hours a week in tissue work.
Twice,
and
yeah, 2
You're
different.
different
serious into it.
therapists.
You
I
do
fly
the
all
other
over the
things.
place, and I truly believe at my age now, I have zero restrictions.
Yeah.
So for me, I look back and people say, "How are you so healthy?" The problem is they look at Ronnie Coleman and then they look at me. 10 years age gap. But was Ronnie's training the reason that he ended up in the position he is, or was it the surgeries that did it?
It's got to be partially genetic, because I think 1,000 Ronnies would do what he did, and only one would have got that much misfortune on what happened.
Is he the greatest bodybuilder ever? Like,
I would say so.
size?
I think so. I think that overall, if you pick the guy with that great of physique for that many years and you had to rank everyone, I think he's the number one.
Do you think we'll ever see another like physique like that?
I think in time we'll see a physique way better than that.
You think so? Huh?
I think not just like
I know, but
that,
why haven't we
way
seen
better?
Why haven't we seen it since him?
Well, I mean, what do we got? Like
Phil
100
Heath was
more
pretty
years?
good.
He was great, but I think that eventually we're going to have gene therapy that can alter the
Like
genes.
myostatins and all
Yes.
that? Do you think that's existing at this point?
I don't think yet, but I think that it's not far off. I think in 10 years we could see it. And then with the more and more drugs that are going to be done and the sport's just going to keep evolving, I think that people are going to keep getting bigger. Eventually, guy's going to come out of nowhere and be 350 on stage.
I don't think we'll ever see another Ronnie because he did it the old school way, the same way you did it. Ronnie turned pro natural.
Yeah.
So did Kai, so did Sean. Phil turned pro on very little, barely over TRT. And I think those guys, as they progressed, Phil was on here and he said, you remember this year's Olympia to this? That's when I could afford growth hormone. To where now the local kid at the gym is taking growth hormone already. So unless we find somebody who's kind of away from social media and says they just train natural and then they start slowly dabbling, I just don't think we're going to see that. I think people are kind of ruined and they think we have to take drugs to be successful, and that's it.
I think the biggest problem is none of these guys are going to be doing it at 40. I think you like C-Bum, like no disrespect, but he's retired. He's not even 30. I didn't even start steroids at that age, so he's retired.
Can you blame him?
I don't blame at all. I'm
got a lot of injuries too.
Because man, if he kept it going, it's going to play a toll on his health. I mean, I just think you can't do that for that long. He started at 18, but imagine if he had started at 29. Like, imagine if he had waited. Imagine that message, what it would...
How do you feel about, like, the Dexter Jacksons who went until they were in their 50s? And, like, now I feel like Dexter Jackson created a stigma of, like, hey, bodybuilding can go into the 40s. And do you think it's safe in those ages?
It's definitely not safe in those ages. I don't know how he did it. Maybe he was on low doses the whole time. I don't know any of his cycles or how he was able to do it to look that good at his age. It's incredible.
You start as a bantamweight, and, I mean, you end up pretty large.
He turned pro as a light heavy, I believe. I remember him turning pro, and I remember reading that in the magazines about being a bantam. It was like I kind of saw myself like that, but I never.
What do you think is? What do you think's the age? Is there like? Would you say there's a shelf? Like I retired at 40. I thought I would be done by 30, but to be honest, the contracts kept me in it. And listen, I loved it. I'm not going to lie, I did love it. But by the end, it just didn't excite me anymore. Like when I stepped away in 13. Like when I got on that stage, I didn't wake up every day with that hunger. Probably the same reason you stopped is it wasn't your passion anymore.
I would, if I was good, be still doing it now. And I think it's almost good that I wasn't good.
You think you'd still be doing it at 49?
I was addicted. I started competing as a teenager, and I was in my last show, got 4th, and it meant so much to me that I placed in the top 5. And if I thought that I could have gotten better, I would have probably done it, and I would have probably kept abusing drugs because I was addicted to the dopamine of doing the show and the contest and being so good at something. I always wanted to be really good at something, and that was it. And so I find it would be hard to stop. And thank God I got into bike racing because I had to replace that dopamine with something else. That feeling of...
Don't you feel like your YouTube stuff, though? It's like like you just spoke about, you're one of the more viral people. Like, what is a win for you with a YouTube video versus a failure? Like, do you go by views or do you go by engagement? Because there's a lot of things to look at, the analytics, what you can see. So we talk about, comments, we talk about how many views, and I feel like sometimes YouTube skews this stuff.
Yes.
Like we sometimes think like they govern stuff sometimes. And like right now, I feel like YouTube, people aren't getting the views. Speaking to everyone in the industry, they're not getting as many views as they have in the past. Is that true right now?
I'm peaking again right now.
Okay.
I was shadow banned for a while. I was speaking out.
Why?
I made a video defending what was his Dr. Eric Bird. He's a guy I don't agree with his comments, but I defend his right to say what he thinks. He's a big keto guy, and he was saying, keto's the greatest thing. Although I don't agree with him.
Yeah, I do.
I said he has every right to say that. And so all his videos on keto were basically viral, and he made some comments, and I spoke and I defended him, and I spoke about the World Health Organization. I said some things, and that video had like 92,100 views in like 24 hours, and the next day it got 10. It just killed it. I went from 20 million views a month to 10. It was every video after that just plummeted. I also got shadow banned on Instagram for 3 months, and my followers went down. It just got lifted 2 weeks ago.
What do you have to be careful what you say?
Sometimes you speak out about the Canadian healthcare system, and they don't like that. Or if you speak about COVID, oh my goodness gracious, that's another nightmare.
They still block it? Is COVID still the term that for
a
a while?
Wouldn't even say
if you mention the word, it automatically, but I don't know if it's
you know I got to go bleep that word out right there.
Yeah, you never know. It's, depending on what you're saying, or you couldn't say
maybe
the word that starts with a V. Like
Yeah.
you would say jab, you couldn't say that word that starts with a V. You had to be very, very careful. Now it depends. If you say or promote like steroids or something, that's bad. I went and made a post where I held up my prescription from my doctor of test, and then that got me in trouble. And then I said something for Transcend. I was talking about BPC 157 or a peptide, and that got me in trouble. So any little thing, I'm like, even though it's legal what they're doing and stuff, that you can get trouble for that. So, but my views this month are at 19 million. And like, I remember when I was viral, like getting 90,000 subs in a month. I remember breaking 20 one month. That was my biggest month for long form. So I'm right at that limit again.
How many does YouTube have at this moment?
YouTube?
Yeah.
1 point some billion. It's over the billion mark I hit. So that's a big milestone.
Are you gaining subscribers consistently?
I don't have the huge like 90,000 a month, but I'm at 29,000 this last month. So it's still going. Mm-hmm. I don't have as much. It doesn't show it to a brand new audience as much. I have a harder time breaking out into that.
How many
audience.
videos a week do you need to do?
I probably average 10 to 12. I used to do 14 a week, 2 a day. Now, if I have a video that's running really well, and by well, I would say 250,000, 300,000 in a day, I don't post another video. I let it ride. And then if it's getting low views, like say under 100K, I post a second video. So we're looking at total views per day or per month kind of thing as the measure. If I'm doing 2 videos, they're both shitty, get a third video.
Okay, so you actually, the idea of content is really important rather than the frequency.
I think the more often you post, the more chance one will go viral. Some videos I'm like, that went viral.
What's the most successful video for you? Do you know?
I think the video I did on a guy that he used steroids and then he regretted it, and he shared his journey. He had acne going through the shirt.
Just a normal dude, or
just a normal guy with like 5,000 followers and got like 7 or 8 million views.
Do you like doing like the interviews, like when we did our Skype and we interviewed?
I love
do you like
podcasts
those?
And interviews a lot. They don't get as many views, but and collabs are fun. Like where I go and like me and you go to the gym and train, but it's the most amount of work for the least amount of views. Like I would make more views by reacting to you saying anything than I would me and you training together and talking about training. And I'm like, and they're like more like this. And I'm like, every time I do that, it's a 10th place video.
What do you enjoy the most though?
The most enjoyment,
I think. Do you like the collabs, or like do you like
I love
work out with
collabing and whenever I'm in a collab, getting to hang around with them and talk to them after and learn from them, it's such a great experience and making more and more friends. I love that. As far as like just the most enjoyment, I think it's when I call out somebody for saying something stupid and then being able to correct them. Like somebody saying something like idiotic, like calories in, calories out, it doesn't work, and then making a video and then with a mic drop moment proving that they're an idiot. That is just a lot of fun for me.
I feel like you've evolved a lot though on like I said, like your channel, like you had a certain persona. And I feel like now like you're an informational channel in a sense.
It's definitely
a lot of people are coming there for like their daily, like kind of not just news, because we can like there's a lot of gossip channels.
Yeah.
Especially now, there's a lot of shit going on behind the scenes from the IFBB, but I feel like now like people rely on you. Have people come to you and say, "Thank you so much for doing this," because it's like their necessary dose of like something for motivation each day.
Like the amount of positivity.
I've
never seen this much. Like I never would have dreamt that it could have been this positive. Like a lot of people in my comments are like, "Greg, everyone hates Greg." I'm like, I've had 6 people approach me in my 5 years and say something negative. Like 6 total. Everyone else, it's like over the moon. Like just walking through anywhere on the street, the photos you take. I guess my compliment bank is so high that I could have somebody call me the horrible names, and it's just like it just bounces right off me because I'm so happy with what the people say to me. It's so amazing to hear that many people saying such nice things. So I'm definitely going to keep doing it.
And where is your, like, have you been surprised you go to these certain countries and your channel's more popular, like the people that come up to you?
I think I'm probably the most popular right now in China of all the countries. My videos are the most viral there. The most videos that hit like 1 million followers, like it's consistently that. And I think the reason is because in China, less people are open. Like you can tell on my channel, I'm very outspoken. I say what I think. And over there, they're so reserved and they're not allowed to kind of say that. So I come in and I say this and say that, like this guy's a fake natty or whatnot. As well, they're 10 years behind us. So my basic information to them, it's like, wow, you just taught us so much. And over here, everyone already knows it.
Do you have to study like what's going on, like their athletes and whatnot? Because obviously bodybuilding is expanding in these.
I have a guy who works for me, Vince, you fan. He speaks Chinese, speaks Mandarin, and he finds these topics. And I can't read Mandarin, so when I post a video, there's like 1,000 comments. Do a video on this guy, so he can read the comment and he can research the guy and say, Greg, this is a person. They said this person's natural. She's 12 years old. What do you think? And so I can just do a video on that. So he does all the research. He reads all the language. He presents to me the video, and I do the video in 20 minutes, and it's done. And it's like 3 million views. And I'm like, wow. And so when I went to China, I was meeting all these people I was doing videos on. They're all wanting to meet me. And I'm like, man, I remember this guy's name. Like, and they're like, you don't, like, 3 million views, you don't know. I'm like, I didn't even watch the video. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's wild.
It's pretty cool.
You know what I've taken from this video?
What's that?
We need to talk shit about him every time we do a video.
So you can get more video reactions.
So we get more views.
You know what's funny? So many people say, oh, I hate Greg doing these videos about me. I hate Greg. He always talks about it.
Well, your Tren Twins were pretty mad, I thought, at you.
They were very mad.
And you
for a long
coached
time.
them before, so like, why'd they get mad? What'd you do?
Well,
Tagging the
I
Tren
do
Twins.
so many videos talking about them. Well, and so I was coaching them, and they were like at 17% body fat and wanted to compete in 11 weeks. And I'm like, you're not going to make it. You want to be 5% body fat in pros. And I was like, you're just not ready at that level yet. And so they didn't make it to the show in time. And then it came out that they were using bunk gear. And then they made a video with some guys, and they kind of edited it a certain way to make it look like I was the one selling them. And I'm like, man, I don't want that reputation. I've already had that crime. I've already been caught. I couldn't travel the States for 10 years. So I didn't sell them anything. And they had the blood work, and it was like, it was fake. And so I'm like, how am I to blame for the success if they're on fake stuff? And so I just made more and more videos reacting to them, saying they're on a cheat and they're on this and that. I'm like, well, there it is again. Why do you think they're not ready? Because they're cheating. And Kyle made a video, said, that's pedo-like. And he was like, and I was like, bro, like, you're going to go there? It was a bit extreme. And so it was back and forth. But I think overall, they're good with me. I mean, he had the pec tear, and people thought...
Which one's the better bodybuilder? Mike or Chris?
Mike, I keep mixing them. Mikey's the one with the pec tear, right? He would be the better bodybuilder, but he's also on higher doses. So do we, you know what I mean? It's like, what are you willing to take?
He just said he has a hard time with people's names, and now you got to try to have him figure out the difference.
No,
Mike
I mean,
and Chris,
he coached them, you know what I mean? So
you'd think I would
know a little
remember.
bit. Is there some people that should just stick to... you know, we just talked about this with Sulek, and now, I mean, the Tren boys. They should stick to social media rather than competition. Do you feel like now, I feel like Bumstead kind of created this, like, okay, he's a great bodybuilder and he does content too. Do you feel like you have to be almost a hybrid now? Would that give you the extra boost?
You have to be a hybrid. And C-Bum, like when he first was blowing up, I would write him quite often saying, you need to make more videos. C-Bum, like, how much money are you making? I'm like, man, that's it? You got to post. But he's just shy. He doesn't have that outspoken, bubbly personality. So he's very calm in his videos, but I mean, it works for him. But he's not like a Tren Twin. Like, these guys are entertaining. Like, you love their videos. It's like, oh yeah, the Tren Twins.
They were the guys, the Barbarian Brothers.
Do you remember them? There's no way.
No,
I do, of course.
That's 80s.
They would go into the gym in like jeans and work boots, and they'd wear these they wear overalls.
And they became famous actors.
Yeah.
But they were
Double
like
trouble.
they were the same thing. They were twin brothers. They had this persona. They were Gold's Gym, and then they were film guys, but they never competed.
Yeah. The Tren Twins, I think, are overrated in terms of their ability to bodybuild and underrated in their ability to be powerlifters. Like, Mikey tore his pec benching 585 at that age, and he's not that big. I'm like, this guy could set world records. I'm like, slow it down. I'm like, trying to stop them. Like, you can't just do a show and then be benching that kind of weight a month after. It's not ready. And he had hurt himself a little bit 3 days prior in a bench press. I'm like, you can't bench press already. And I kept warning him, and then all of a sudden the pec tear happened. Of course, it was the Greg told you so's, and I made a video, and everyone's like, you're just exploiting it for... I'm like, I'm trying to send a message that you can't do this, learn from his mistakes. I didn't want to see it happen. Like, the injuries like that can be devastating. So, you know, I'm happy that he's recovering well and he's able to train, and he looks amazing, but like, slow it down and let's take our time, because he could eventually bench press maybe 700 pounds if he hadn't done that at that time. Like, just take your time with it.
Yeah, because I think like Von Moger was the early social media, and I think like him and Chris Bumstead, like I think almost Callum was more popular than Chris at the time, and like everyone talked about Callum being like the ideal classic physique guy. Yeah. And then, I mean, he could have done film. We had Ed Connors on here. He got him into wrestling, and he actually cleared the school. Basically, he did well enough that they would have taken him on. And, you know, he actually said it was one of the most wasted talents. I mean, he's been here for our podcast. And, like, I thought he was going to go straight to film and, like...
He could have, for sure. Well, he did. He did that movie,
the Arnold
Joe Weider
film,
movie.
yeah.
Too much success at a young age can kind of warp the mind. Like, and obviously, we'll look what he got into mentally with the recreational drug abuse and whatnot. And the whole
You've seen it a million times, though, right?
Oh, it's horrible. Yeah. Young guys like that, it happens a lot. It happens a lot in bodybuilders, especially like guys dieting for shows. They get into recreational drugs like Coke and stuff, and to help them with the diet.
Yeah.
Now there's GLP-1s, thank God, that people can use to kind of, I guess, negate the need to take like a lot of stims. Like there's a lot of drug use, like taking Adderalls and whatnot. Just that's a small scratch of the surface of what people do for contest prep, because the lack of energy and the extreme hunger to get to that ripped physique, the abuse of drugs. And once you've done that, a month straight, then maybe you're addicted. Then you're doing it off season.
Yeah,
a lot of
when
that.
I was bodybuilding, it was the new Bane phase. Yeah. Now you're talking. I mean, people use Adderall to offset
all kinds of any ADD medication. Their Adderall starts out in contest prep. Coaches are putting it on their plans, and I'm like, I get a lot of plans from people. Greg, what do you think? And I'm like, I think you need to fire your coach. And so a lot of times I'll coach them in secret.
I know, but you took ungodly amounts. So, like, you understand why people do what they do, right?
100% get it.
It's good that you're transparent about that, because then you can say, look, I did this. Yeah. And you know what's right and wrong. And it was almost negative to you.
When I see a bikini girl using Tren,
I mean,
it happens a lot.
Come on. And it's a common thing.
I can't believe that.
And I'm like, the coach is doing it, but the coach is like, I'm not worried about, they just want to get into the show, have the before and after, and then 10 more clients are going to hire them because look at this, but they don't know about the voice. Like if I had a girl hire me, I said, give me your, and it was a male, female kind of name, like a Michelle Michael. And she gave me the cycle. And I'm like, yeah, I said that it's kind of high doses for the level you're at. And then I found out it was a girl. And I was like, oh my God, this is a girl. She come over, she's like 5'6", 195 pounds. I want to compete in physique. And it was women's physique. And I was like, oh no. And it was like, you know, like 350 this, 350 that, 350 that. And I was like, who did this? But the coach did it. And then, yeah, I'm on this much DNP. And I'm like, I was like, I don't know what to do. You need to stop taking everything. It just isn't.
You know, the drug use is what ran Urishna off. Because she's like, I'm not doing this. Urishna Allah. She's got the biggest following of any girl in the industry. She was the wellness girl from Puerto Rico. And she's like, I'm not doing this. I'm done. She won't push the drugs the way these girls had to.
She was one of the top wellness.
She was a top wellness girl. She has almost 4 million on Instagram. She said, I can't do it. I'm done.
Okay.
She
must
would
be
not
missing out
take
on
the
this
drugs.
person. I don't know. The name isn't right.
She's the most viral wellness girl. I'll show you her Instagram.
Yeah. I mean, Jesse James did a video on a girl. It was a steroids and girl. I reacted. I'm like, this is stupid. I didn't like his reaction at all. He was like, women should be allowed to do steroids too. Why is there like a double standard? I'm like, one of the girls died. I did a video on this girl. I forget her name, Vaughn something. She was 19. She used to write me in my DMs at 15 years old. She would send photos. She had like, you know, eating disorder, whatever. And she was in the Jesse video. And she's like, oh, I'm that girl. I used to text you, whatever, back in the day. I'm like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden she's gone. You know, just from, I think.
You think blood work is important if you're coaching someone, like hormones, and do you usually request something like that?
I think it's very important. And when I used to coach people, it was before that was kind of a thing. Like I didn't have blood work when I used to compete. It wasn't a thing.
I didn't either.
I would get blood work after. And like one time, I think once I did it during a contest and the doctor's like, well, this is bad. And then I showed up a month later off cycle. He's like, how did you fix this? I'm like, well, I stopped taking Tren. You know what I mean? Like, and it went back real quick, but like while on, my blood work was horrible.
You mentioned Tren a few times. Is that like the worst drug there is in bodybuilding?
I mean, I would say probably there's more dangerous, like DNP, which is like for burning.
Yeah, but I mean that's
like
the
bodybuilding drug. I
You
mean,
can die from insulin. In
insulin
30
is
minutes.
But
death,
DNP, like who uses DNP?
You'd be surprised.
a lot.
A lot of people do.
Yeah,
A lot of
still
people do.
there. Halotestin would be one drug that was like, when I took it, I was angry, like noticeably angry, like where I would be like, I'm not a happy person, but I'm just a chill guy. And so nothing really gets to me. But when I was on Halo, I was like angry or snappy, and I had to notice that and control myself. Whereas without it, I'm just a chill guy. With this, I'm like, I have to be nice on purpose, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Did you ever get affected like that?
No,
I don't think so.
Because I'm just so like.
You probably didn't use doses like I did
I'm
either.
just so like. No, I mean, listen, I'm not going to say I didn't use.
You pushed it.
I always pushed for a contest, but like the one thing is we cycled on and off, which today
Yeah, I did that as well.
I did, like they say you should just stay on like a
Blasting cruise, they do mostly now.
but,
I used to go.
but I don't know if I believe that, Greg. Like I'm sure like my test levels dropped to like basically nothing because I would just I would go cold turkey after a contest. But listen, I never had any crazy health markers either. Still to this day, I mean, my health markers show no sign of that I ever did any abuse to my body. And there's no question I abused steroids to be great at what I did, because anything taking more than a certain amount is, I mean,
anything more than HRT to me is abuse. If you're like, oh, I only did 400
when you don't,
tests,
especially
400
when you don't need it. Remember, I started at 20. You know, in your 20s, do you really need to use enhancements? To get a pro card, I felt like I had to. Although, like we talk about, Ronnie was natural, Kai Green was natural for a long time.
John Roden was natural too.
Yeah.
Oh wow, natural.
Yeah. Well, it's the longer you wait, the better. I like the longer you can stay off gear, the better. Like once
you have a better foundation too.
Yeah, you learn how to train. You know what works, what doesn't work. So if you can push off, your career will be extended.
But what you're saying there, if you're natural, you have to learn how to train better. You can't cheat.
Yeah.
You have to learn how to eat better to get those little gains. So when you take
it does kind of bother me sometimes, though. It's like people say, Jay, you know, I'm natural, so keep that in mind. You know, I can't do what you did. Like basically eat like that and train like that. You know, I'm natural, so I can't recover as much. Is that true?
I tell people that
genetic?
natural or enhanced, you should train the same. I believe that if
it's
you
like
have
the guys
mindset
used to
to
come
train
off
hard.
the juice and then they just wouldn't train at all. They'd say, "Oh, I'm off now, so I don't want to train." That's kind of a poor mindset, isn't it?
I agree 100%. Yeah. And I think that having built my body naturally for so many years, it gave me the mindset you have to train hard, you have to push yourself. And so once I added steroids, I mean, then it was so much easier.
What's on the horizon for you now? What is there anything new you're working on for 2025 that I mean, you've been traveling a lot more than I've seen in the past, or has that just been a continuous thing?
I love to travel. Now I'm permitted to travel to the States for the next 2 years. So I have that permission. So I'm obviously using that to my advantage, trying to travel as much as I can.
You like the U.S. or?
I would move here if I could, like literally.
What do you like?
I like the warmer weather. I don't like the Canadian tax rates. I actually tried to move to Dubai because 54% tax, and I was looking at we have to pay an exit tax. So the exit tax was so high that I would almost be house poor to move because they tax you.
Why do you like
business.
Dubai so much?
The weather was so nice. The structures were so amazing. It's kind of like Vegas
way
here,
ahead,
but like
but way ahead of it.
More.
He was telling me like he's been over.
I go there all the time.
Canada's the second, or I would say the United States is the second world country compared to Dubai. Like we're all first world country, and then you go there.
Third world country in some cases. Yes,
like the healthcare. Like I had a collapsed lung in Dubai, and I just walk in, and in 4 hours I had 2 doctors, 2 medical tests, 5 prescriptions. It was $700. I go in Canada with the same issue. They send me back home. I had to go in the next day. Like I'm in a mess. I waited 8 hours to see one doctor who said, "Go back home." I'm like, are you
serious? The difference in America, if you don't have insurance, you're going to get $100,000 bill.
Well, compared to the millions of dollars I pay every year in taxes, I would certainly rather just say, like, I'm paying taxes so all the people who don't work can go to the doctor, and then they won't look at me.
And the difference is we pay all the taxes, and we still have to pay to go to the doctor.
Yeah. Yeah, depending on the state, your tax rate will be high.
Vegas is low for property tax.
It was better.
There's
with
no state tax and no corporate state tax.
Was it more like a 26% or like somewhere maybe a quarter?
Depends what bracket you're in.
It depends on your accountant.
We have a luxury tax too, 20% on top of the 15. Like if you buy a car for $1 million, you pay 1.15 million plus $200K on top of that.
And the Canadian dollar is pretty weak right now, right?
Yeah, like $1.40. It's like $1.
Here and it's costs a lot of money. If
like $100 US is worth like 140 something. But I get paid in US dollars because of my company. Like,
that's
so I'm like,
sure. That's why I always make sure I manage
I
Regan Grimes, and I make sure all his contracts are always in US dollars.
Yeah, it's all
he's
US
back
dollars.
in Canada.
The cookbooks and the supplements are all in US dollars and whatnot. But I got like, what am I doing? I'm trying to promote Turkesterone to the world from the plant Ajuga turkestanica. You know, we're the only company I know that's in North America here that has the legit actual product, and it's selling out like ridiculous. So that's the face of the company that I'm doing right now. I'm trying to just
do you like the
popularize
supplement space?
Supplements is awesome. Absolutely. It's fun. It's a fun time. I get the cheesy little drop every every video, like, and people are expecting it, like, how am I going to come up with this or that? So I will shamelessly promote a supplement in every single video at some point. It's almost like a fun.
Yeah, you do it in a good way too. Like,
I make it fun.
Yeah,
I think. Like, some people are like, it's fun.
It's awesome, man. What are the questions you have? Anything else?
No, I think we touched on it.
Anything else you want to put out there before we wrap it up? Anything
you can say that'll make our video go viral?
I wish there was something I could say. No, I have nothing to say. People should just see I'm just a chill guy. And people that meet me in person, they're like, you're not like I would expect. I would say 99% of people are like kind of surprised. They're expecting me like screaming at them or something.
Yeah.
You know what I want? At some point, because you said you want to come here more often, I want him to do a breakdown with us after a show, because he's an actual judge, so he can tell us if we're full of shit.
Oh, yeah.
Because we have opinions, but we're just...
Yeah, like Sam Sulek, he won so easily by so much that I was like, if any judge had him second, they're just ridiculous.
Well,
like,
there was
like,
the Asian
really?
guy in the overall that they said could have...
No.
He looked great, but he was just small.
He had legs, and his back was undersized by such a significant margin that it was not. It was an immediate no as soon as I saw his back. Like, yeah, it's some nice shape, but... It's a bodybuilding show. Like, you can't just compete. Sam's barely making 217.
Do you think he's more of a bodybuilder, or is he a classic physique guy?
Sam is more of a bodybuilder, but he should stick in classic because he doesn't have to use as many drugs. And he's got 10 more pounds to work
though,
with.
Greg?
Yes.
Because
Sam, on less doses, can be at the weight limit cap for classic. He can only gain 10 more pounds. Like C-Bum. If C-Bum had no such thing as classic, C-Bum would have had to retire 5 years earlier because he would have to use double the doses, because rather than competing at the weight limit of 252, Hanny said he competed at 253 or so on stage. 3 weeks later, he would have been 265 on every drug in the world. And so I think that classic allowed C-Bum to have those 6 Olympias, because if it wasn't for that, he would have pushed his size game. It would have ruined his physique. He would have ruined his health. So that's why I want classic physique light, because you could get a C-Bum to come back out of retirement 20 pounds lighter and maybe even win that.
So what are you saying? Small, like less
the weight class less.
Weight class,
yeah. Like, so for my weight cap, 193 for 5'6", let's put it down 20. So the weight cap's 173. When my physique was 170, like, you would have said, there's no way that's Natty. When I was 155, I would have smoked most guys. So at 173, a good-looking physique is going to kill it at 5'6", and at C-Bum, that's 222. 6'1", 222.
And was he now 240 or
242 is his weight limit. C-Bum turned pro at 222, so when he was like his first shows, he was competing in the 220.
Like, I just saw Ramon's like weighing 265. We saw Urs at the Arnold. He's massive.
Big.
I mean, these guys look like open guys.
Yeah.
If they put on 10, 15 pounds, they all are
Urs
open guys.
could compete open. Urs has cross-threaded quads head to toe at 270 on stage. You saw him. It's like, it's shocking, the muscle.
He guest posed in Dubai. Yeah.
It's too big. I want the classic physique to be lowered by 20 pounds, because then it's an obvious and distinct difference between open. Samson Dota, no one's going to confuse him for that. But with a guy like Mike Sommerfeld, you're like, wait a minute, wait a minute, he looks as big as this guy who's...
I know. Well, what do you think about Wesley Vissers, where they said, well, his legs should be smaller because it fits more of the classic guys?
I think
Arnold
that people have no idea what classic doesn't mean you have to look like a guy in the 80s. And even if it is, you've got guys like friggin', what's his, the guy with the big legs? Man, I wish I could name everyone. See, it's like
he's a classic guy, or
a guy. No, he was the Quadzilla. The Quad Father.
There's so many. Tom Platz.
Tom Platz, exactly. He was a classic guy from the past, but he's not a classic physique. And Arnold Schwarzenegger had weaker legs. Arnold Schwarzenegger had weaker legs because he didn't diet hard enough. But back then, he didn't need to.
They didn't have the no.
Yeah, they didn't know. Right? If Arnold were born today, he'd be way bigger. So to me, classic physique, it's like, rather than thinking classic physique has to be a certain body type with bigger legs or smaller legs, just think of it as, let's just make it a smaller weight category with aesthetics. Like more of the Greek god type of look that most people want to look like. Like when you ask an 18-year-old, they don't close their eyes and envision Nick Walker. They don't, that's not the body they want.
But do you think, in your opinion, will classic overtake open?
It's almost overtaking it now. I think it will. I think that more people can relate.
Don't you think people want to come see the freaks?
They want to see the freaks, but I think that most people, the average person that's just sitting
It's
there
attainable.
is wanting to look like classic more than open. But more people will come and watch the freaks because the average person isn't coming to a show. The ones who are really obsessed are watching the shows. But the average person that's swiping on Instagram wants to see C-Bum more than like Derek Lunsford. It's just because that's more the look that they like. Yeah. And I could think that even classic physique light go down even smaller. I think that would be even more popular than the current class now, because it's even more, not attainable, but more realistic for like a dream body.
The problem is the length of the shows, Greg. Like the shows run.
Yeah, they got to get rid of the 212 and add that, and then stop having like 50 different people show up and just judge quicker.
Do you think with this Arnold controversy, like all these men's physique guys boycotting the show, do you think that they should bring men's physique back for next year's Arnold, or should they just take it out and put 212 there?
I'm not a fan of 212 in it. I wish they could have another category like we're talking like the Abercrombie or the smaller men's fitness model. I'd like to see that in the show. But should they take it out? There's going to be 5 people that boycott it. Somebody else will be like, oh, he's not in it, he's in it. I'm guaranteed going to that show because now I can win. The guys that know they can't win, now they're going to compete.
At the end of the day,
25K,
it's still the second highest paid show, and they cover your flight.
I think Dubai actually pays more, right?
But I don't know. Are they covering their flights, their hotels, their per diem, their this? I mean, you offset another. I think they told me it's about $2,500 per person in expenses to bring them in. And they cover all their expenses too. So it's still
people may not.
And
even
the thing about it is, if you win that show, you know damn well that picture with Arnold is going to be something you're going to promote for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Because he's the most notable physique
money
ever.
And he wants to make more, and he stood up and he made a point, and it's a controversial one, and it's made him even more popular, or I'll say polarizing, like kind of like to be that Conor McGregor, like the heel. I think that does something for his career. People will remember him. That's the guy that spoke out about it, and then that will help his popularity, and
it'll help him personally.
Money
sure.
from competing.
Nobody does.
Did you care about making money, Greg, when you started bodybuilding?
Never once. There's not one show. They could have said it's $1 million or $1.
This,
I would have competed just as hard.
I just loved it.
Yeah. I never thought I'd ever win money in a show. And I'm a pro bodybuilder. I never won $1 from being a pro. I compete. I have to pay for my membership to compete. And it was very expensive to prep. But I make a living from coaching people, from selling supplements, cookbooks, YouTube. Anyone that's making a living from bodybuilding, it's not from the competing, it's from what's surrounded with that.
Are you ever going to stop, is the question? Like, do you think this will just continue? Like, you enjoy it still every day? It's just or you look at it as a job?
It's like, I love it, so I would want to do it no matter what. But I was watching a guy, I forget his name, but he's like, I've been doing this since 2014. I'm taking a break from fitness. There's only too many times I can tell you how to diet. And he loved it. And so I'm like, will that happen to me? I mean, maybe. I can't predict it, but I don't see any... I don't see in the next couple of years, 5 years, that's happening. I like it just as much now as I did 5 years
ago. You
ago.
mentioned that you told Chris that you need to post more. Do you try to educate a lot of people with the YouTube stuff?
Behind the scenes, there's a lot of the top level influencers with the millions of followers to come up, so I try to give them advice on what to do, talk. A lot of times it's like, how do you deal with the popularity, the stress, and the fame? And a lot of guys are like, they're making millions of dollars, and they're trying to buy expensive cars. They don't know what to do with it, or they have body dysmorphia. And I'm just trying to be the, maybe not the dad, but the uncle of the fitness industry, to just give the people advice. Cause I've been there, done that. So,
you know what, the prize money thing, I pointed this out to Jay the other day. If you took all the money he made on every show in his career, it was still less than he makes annually. Yeah. The same with Chris, probably on a month basis. Jeremy Buendia sat here and said he made $55,000 competing his whole career. Yep. That's less than what these guys make in a month.
Money there.
So there's never been big money in the prize money. It was what you can do with that platform and go. You can go make $100 million if you want, but you're not going to make it on the stage. Even the biggest names in the business.
Top level influencers with the millions of followers on Instagram, coaching with no experience as a competitor, can make $1 million plus a year.
For sure.
Just being a famous guy that promotes, hey, hire me for coaching. They don't have to have a kines degree or anything, and they can make $1 million. They're never going to make $1 million a year competing.
No.
And so the incentive to compete is...
You won't make $1 million in your whole career.
No.
Competing.
The incentive to compete is you want to compete. You love the sport. I competed because I love it. You competed because you loved it. Had there been money or no money, we're still competing.
Yeah. I think Jeremy said this on here. He made $1.2 million one year just coaching people.
Yeah. 100%.
5-6 years
When I
ago.
first started getting famous, like maybe I had 50,000 followers, I was making around $750,000 just in coaching. And I'm like, I can't coach this many hours anymore. I couldn't do it. And once the cookbook came out, I'm like, oh, now I don't have to do that. I'll just make videos and relax.
It takes a lot of time, right? The coaching. That's
so much time.
because it's like back to back, and then it's schedule. It's like there's no days off ever.
Yeah, like the check-ins on the weekend, and it would be like, oh my God. And sometimes like I've had 16-hour days where I just sit there in front of the computer, and then I started hiring coaches to help me. So they're sitting at my computer, setting up the plans for me to give it to me so that I can do it. Then I hired a chef. I'm like, I don't got time. You got to go groceries. You got to clean. So you hire the chef. So I'm like, all I need, because I'm like, I'm making $1,000 an hour. I can't go into the grocery store because that's $1,000 to go grocery shop. I'll pay you. You go grocery shop, you make me breakfast, I'll sit and work because every hour I can make $1,000. Well, why am I going to do anything that does? So it's just like the ROI wasn't there. So I'm like, I just hired everyone else to do everything in my life.
It makes it easier. We always talk about that.
Time is your most valuable asset.
Yeah.
And you don't know when you're going to run out.
And I'm the cook. I was like the chef, and I'm like, I can't cook anymore. I've cooked maybe 10 meals in the last 2 years.
Would that affect your training when you're thinking about that? Going, I'm making $1,000 an hour, but if I drive 45 minutes to the gym and train, I just lost $3,000.
Well, training was my fun, and like the gym was my fun. But like I would do 2 hours of cardio. I was often doing 2 hours of cardio a day, prepping for my last show. And I would use the entire 2 hours to read and reply to comments. So that was work. People are like, you always say you work 100 hours a week. I don't believe you. I'm like, count it. And they're like, oh, responding to comments isn't work. I'm like, you don't think it is? Every time I make a comment and pin that negative comment, engage people, they're like, oh, if I talk, Greg might write me. And so they get in there and they try to dig at me. And I'm like, I want that. I want you to hate me or love me because the more you watch and talk, the more money I'm going to make.
It's awesome, man. We appreciate you coming on, man. I'm glad you reached out, and I'm sure we'll do it again, man.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'll be back here shortly.
Hopefully you'll be living here at some point, man.
It would be great. Yeah.
I'll connect you to the right lawyer.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
All right, man. Thank you so much.